Good morning, everybody. Good morning. My name is Julia Rady. I'm the chair of the Toronto Preservation Board. The clerk has confirmed that we have quorum, so I will now call meeting 26 of the Toronto Preservation Board to order. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for making it to City Hall if you're here in person. This is a hybrid meeting with some members, staff, and the public attending in person, and others connecting by video conference over the WebEx platform or calling in. This meeting is also being live streamed online at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. Because we are meeting in person and remotely, we ask for your patience with any delays and technical issues. If you are registered to speak at today's meeting, please listen for me to call your name. I will call speakers in the order they appear on the list. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Toronto Preservation Board at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. I would like to request that staff and invited participants, as well as all observers joining remotely, keep their video turned off unless they need to speak or answer questions. This is going to make it easier for me as chair to see the members as we debate and vote on the agenda items. I also ask that all members keep their microphones muted unless you wish to question staff or speak to an item. If members wish to speak to an item, please make sure your video is on. And for my members who are remotely, I can see your lovely faces in front of me, just as I see the other members of my board in front of me too. So I can see everybody. This is great. But raise your hand or unmute your mic and let me know and indicate your intention, and I will create a speakers list. When voting on an item or motion, I ask members to turn on your video and raise your hand to indicate your vote. And if there is a recorded vote, you'll be asked to state if you are in favor or opposed. Members, the city clerk has provided all agenda materials on your toronto.ca/council. As a reminder, please submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at hertpb@toronto.ca to help with motions. Although we may be meeting in different locations today, the Preservation Board would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. At this time, are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you have an interest, please raise your hand and unmute your mic and indicate the number and the nature of the interest. Adam, I saw your hand raised.
Yes. 26.7 at the 508 510 Church Street. I'm the former director of the Church Wellesley BIA, and I've had meetings with the developer in question regarding this project.
Perfect.
If the clerks could send me the conflict form so I could fill that out ASAP, it'd be hugely appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other declarations of interest? Seeing none, may I please have a motion to confirm the minutes from our meeting on November 28th, 2024? Paul, thank you very much. All those in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Now we're going to move into the agenda review. The first item is PB 26.1, 3100 Weston Road, Notice of Intention to Designate a Property under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. There are public speakers on this item, so it will be held. The next item is PB 26.2, 29, 31, and 33 Sussex Avenue, Notice of Intention to Designate a Property under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. There's a presentation from Heritage Planning staff available if the board would like to hear it. Would anybody care to hold this item? Held by Adam. Thank you very much. The next item is PB 26.3, 1778, 1908, 1914, 1920, and 1926 Bloor Street West, inclusion on the Heritage Register. There's a presentation from city staff if anybody would care to hear it. Would anybody like to hold this item? Adam, you'd like to hold it? There
Yes,
we
thank
go.
you.
Moving on now to PB 26.4, 84 Maitland Street, inclusion on the Heritage Register. There's a presentation from planning staff available. Would anybody like to hold this item? Jeff, thank you very much. PB 26.5, 96 Cortleigh Boulevard, alterations to and demolition of heritage attributes of a designated heritage property under sections 33 and 34 of the Ontario Heritage Act. There's a presentation from Heritage Planning staff available if we'd like to hear the presentation. Would anybody like to hold this item? Looking up and down. Adam, you'd like to hold it? Okay. The next item is PB 26.6, 522 University Avenue, alterations to and demolition of heritage attributes at a designated heritage property under sections 33 and 34 of the Ontario Heritage Act and authority to enter into a heritage easement agreement. There are public speakers registered on this item, so I will hold it. The next is PB 26.7, 508 and 510 Church Street, alterations to heritage properties and authority to amend a heritage easement agreement. There are public speakers on this item, so I will hold it. And finally, PB 26.8, designation of the Kensington Market Heritage Conservation District under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act. There are public speakers on this item, so it's going to get held. And so now we're going to go right back to the beginning with PB 26.1, 3100 Weston Road. And I will turn it over to staff for their presentation.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Larissa Cologito. I'm a heritage planner at the City of Toronto, and I'll be presenting on item PB 26.1, 3100 Weston Road, Notice of Intention to Designate a Property under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Next slide, please. The subject property is located on the west side of Weston Road at the intersection of Weston Road and Shepherd Avenue West. The subject property straddles the boundary of the Humbermead and Pelmo Park Humberlea neighborhoods. The approximate property parcel boundary is outlined in purple in this map and illustrates the expansive lot size, which is bound by Weston Road to the east, a housing subdivision on Coral Gable Drive to the north, the Humber Shepherd Pond or Crangs Pond to the west, and the Humber River and Humber River Recreational Trail to the south. The subject property includes the historic Rivermead House and Garage to the south and the Carmine Stefano Community Center, formerly St. Basil the Great College School and Chapel, to the north. Next slide, please. Known as Rivermead, the property contains a detached 2.5-story house form building with a 2.5-story garage, a rear pool complex and pump house, and an expansive surrounding landscape. Constructed in circa 1930 to 31 for Percy R. Gardner and his wife Gertrude Gardner, and designed by the renowned architect Jocelyn Davidson and landscape architect Arthur M. Cruz, the residence is fashioned in the Tudor Revival style and is set within an expansive lot that extends into the Humber River Valley. Next slide, please. The Order of St. Basil the Great acquired the property in 1958 and in 1961-2 built at the north end of the property the modernist-style St. Basil the Great College School and Chapel, which is now the Carmine Stefano Community Center. It was designed by the Edmonton architect Eugene Olekshi. The school was closed in 1999 when a new school was opened in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. In August of 2023, the Order of St. Basil the Great sold 3100 Weston Road and removed all elements of the Marianne Shrine of Gratitude that had been located at the rear of the house since 2005. Next slide, please. The property at 3100 Weston Road was included on the North York Inventory of Heritage Properties by North York Council on October 6, 1997. The original listing related solely to the former Rivermead House. Following revisions to the Ontario Heritage Act in 2005, 3100 Weston Road and many other properties on pre-amalgamation municipal inventories were included on the City of Toronto's Heritage Register as listed properties on September 27, 2006. City Council amended the listing statement on November 8, 2023. Next slide, please. Staff have determined that the property at 3100 Weston Road meets 6 out of the 9 criteria in Ontario Regulation 906, the criteria prescribed for municipal designation under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. It should be noted that this evaluation and the recommendations contained within this report relate exclusively to the Rivermead residence and its landscape context. The heritage evaluation of the former St. Basil the Great College School Chapel in the northeast portion of the current Carmine Stefano Community Center is pending since access to the interior of the chapel was not provided to city staff. The integrity of the chapel and its individual cultural heritage value will be determined at a future date. Heritage staff are of the opinion that its potential value is distinct from the earlier constructed Rivermead House and relates more directly to the post-1958 period of the property's evolution and occupation. The property at 3100 Weston Road, known as Rivermead, has design and physical value as a representative example of the Tudor Revival style house form building. The style is evidenced in the main house in its asymmetrical form and 2.5-story massing, in the materials and false half timbering, and in the varied roofline with numerous high-pitched cross gables. The style can also be seen in the primary or east elevation, in the 1-story fieldstone bay with central round-headed archways that connect the residence to the garage, the recessed porch, the multiple chimney stacks, and the casement windows in a multitude of banks and configurations throughout. The Tudor Revival style is also evident in the attached garage and in the pump house at the rear of the property. Next slide, please. While much of the original interior detailing, including expansive wood paneling, has been removed, the original fieldstone fireplace in the main foyer is extant, as is the original wood paneling and ceiling beams in the library at the northeast corner of the main house. Rivermead also displays a high degree of artistic merit and a high level of craftsmanship. The property has historical and associated value for its direct association with its original owners, the well-known Toronto philanthropists Percy R. Gardner and his wife, Gertrude Gardner. 3100 Weston Road also has historical and associated value for its direct association with Jethro Kirby Crang and Francis A. Matson, who purchased the property from the Gardner family in 1950. Crang was a local builder, and his family constructed one of the first outdoor malls in Ontario and developed many of the subdivisions surrounding Oakwood Avenue and St. Clair Avenue West. The property at 3100 Weston Road also has historical and associated value for its later association with the Order of St. Basil the Great, who acquired the property in 1958 and over time used it for various purposes, including a monastery at the main house, a private boarding school for boys, and a co-ed private high school, St. Basil the Great College School, until they sold it in 2023. Next slide, please. Rivermead is valued for its association with the architect Jocelyn Davidson, who was active in Toronto and Vancouver and is credited for designing various impressive private residences and mansions in Canada in the early 20th century. It is also valued for its association with the landscape architect Arthur M. Cruz, who created numerous landscape designs for estates in Ontario that were featured in issues of Canadian Homes and Gardens. The property has additional historical and associated value for its association with the former Marianne Shrine of Gratitude in the rear gardens, which became an important site of spiritual meaning, as well as a space for peaceful reflection and solace in the community. Through the placement, setback, and orientation of the main house at the top of the embankment, Rivermead has contextual value related to its importance in maintaining the historic character of Emery Village, which developed as a farming community near Finch Avenue and Weston Road during the early 19th century. Next slide, please. Holding a prominent position in its setting at the top of the embankment with the primary east elevation fronting Weston Road and the rear west elevation containing a panoramic view overlooking the Humbert Shepherd Pond or Crank's Pond to the west. The subject property is also physically, functionally, visually, and historically linked to its surroundings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Larissa. We have a number of speakers on this item, so I'm going to call everybody in order, and I will sort of say this at the get-go. Every speaker has 5 minutes to speak, and because it is a robust list, I will absolutely cut you off at the end of 5 minutes. But I invite everybody to up, and I'll call you in the order that I have you on my list. So the first is Angela Carboni.
Good day. Hello?
Welcome, Angela. You have 5 minutes.
Okay. I'm here on behalf of the Marian Shrine of Gratitude. As you're aware, there are thousands of people interested. Last year in September, Councillor Peruzza brought forward a petition of 17,000. At this moment, the petition is at 21,000, almost 900 individuals, and still climbing. This property has been used by the Basilian Fathers since 2004, inviting members of the community of all types, and many came, thousands. Weekly, I'd say thousands came. People came because they found peace, they found healing, they found a place of solace, and it is still there. Even though the structures are down, the actual feeling of peace and the presence of God and the healing is still in the area. So we have continued praying since it was sold, and now have permission from Samuel with Averins Corporation to continue praying. The thousands that are petitioning are all hoping to regain a piece of property to pray again. I'm talking healings of terminal cancer, blindness, people who couldn't walk, and there are hundreds. Some of them are here today. Some have written into you, and many are crying out, hoping that this piece of land be considered heritage and sacred land for the community. So we are here to really petition that this is considered. It started with a priest who lived in the house on October 4th, 2004, who had perforated retina, and there was medical evidence that he was blind. On the same day, October 4th, 2004, he prayed and his sight was restored till he died, had 20/20 vision. Among others, my mother had colon cancer, and after going there, praying with Father, she was completely cancer-free at the age of 85 and lived till she was 98. I personally rented at the Carmine Stefano from the year 2000 till 2018, and I stayed at the shrine daily. I held many people who were in desperate situations, some terminally ill, some suicidal, and many came back with a smile, finding hope. As you're all aware, Canada is in a very dark place right now. Many people are looking for hope, and many people are taking their own lives. So this is something it's a gift from God, and it's a gift of hope. And when I was there, one of the priests told me, when times get very, very difficult, God sends a place like this to the community. And God gave us a place like Lourdes in Toronto, and I pray that we don't lose it. I've done everything in my power to try to save it. I've worked with hundreds of people who constantly call me to this day, begging me to keep it open, trying to get this place back. We're hopeful that Samuel is listening to us now. I think he realizes this is real because otherwise people wouldn't continue knocking, and people haven't stopped. In the last week alone, 200 people signed the petition. People are calling night and day, wanting this place to be back. And in this dark time, this is a gift to Toronto. And if you look at places like Lourdes, Fatima, it brings tons of tourism and tons of love and tons of hope for the community. So I really pray that you consider how precious this place is and what a gift it is for everyone. I can't turn my back on it because I've held so many people that were healed and so many people with a smile after they came to pray there. So thank you for your time. I really pray that you consider this as a very, very valuable place.
Thank you very much, Angela. Do we have any questions for our speaker? And to my fellow members, I'm also very cognizant because of our speakers list that we might have questions as we go along, and so we can have a robust for all of our speakers at the end as well. So we can go back and forth, and maybe that's sort of the best way forward so that we can give space for everybody to be heard. The next on our...
Am I able to ask questions or no?
Not at this moment,
Okay.
sir. Thank you. We have our next speaker. Our next speaker is Roxana Rack. Good morning, and I think you can come right here, and I will reset this.
Hi guys, once again, my name is Roxana Rack. I believe that 3100 Weston Road should become Ontario Heritage Act because of hundreds of physical and psychological miracles. I'm one of them. In 2010, November 21st, I was in a catastrophic traumatic car accident. I was in a rejected from the rear window on the highway. I needed CPR like right away, immediately. I was in a coma for 2 months. My whole left side was paralyzed. I can function normally right now at this point because of Weston, the miracle place. And I wasn't able to walk or communicate for approximately 5 months. And I had 3 brain skull surgeries on the right side, and that's the main injury, and 2 leg surgeries on my fractured femur. The doctors told my family members that I will be non-functional and non-communication my whole life. So why keep me alive, right? However, my dad had hope that everything would be fine. So he called Father Basil at the Western Marine Shrine of Gratitude. And right away, he came downstairs and he told the people who were there, Dominica and Carlo, to take care of this place for a few days because he's going to Kingston, Ontario, to take care of me and to pray on top of me. And they said they'll take care of the Western for a few days. And then Father Basil didn't have hesitation to be able to help, so he drove many times to Kingston, Ontario, the General Hospital 4 times, and then Trillium Hospital weekly with Father Myron as well. And there were many individuals in the Western Shrine that knew about me, and they prayed for hundreds of times for many years. Even today, they pray for me from the Western Shrine of Gratitude. And then when I was released from the hospital was April 2011. I was in a wheelchair. I was still paralyzed my left side. Like on this side, I had to take my right hand and pick it up to raise it. So, and then my parents drove me to Weston, the Marine Shrine of Gratitude, after I left the hospital, to show where there were a lot of masses and prayers toward me. And when we went to Mother Mary, my dad said, please get up. I'm like, I can't walk. I will be paralyzed my whole life. I won't be able to function, as the doctor said, right? And then my dad said, please take a step. So that's when I rose up, and I took 1 or 2 steps with assistance that moment, right? And then I couldn't believe it that I was up and I was functioning as physically as a human being. And then weekly, I came to visit the Marine Shrine of Gratitude, and I needed assistance by holding my dad's hand or somebody else's hand, right, to walk on the processions. And eventually, week by week, I started to improve. And slowly, I even go there by myself now today, right? It's like 2010, it's like 14 years, right? It's a while, right? But I have a brain injury and fractured femur, so I'm still doing rehabilitation. However, when I go to this place, I feel like calmness. And 2010 to like 2015, I had a lot of insurance negativity and lawyer negativity toward me. And when I went to Weston, basically all that disappeared. I felt like a calmness and a silence of all the negative effects on me that people had. So as I mentioned in the beginning, how like people get physically healed there. They are able to walk from like a cane without no cane, and even from a wheelchair myself, right? And how they go psychologically, how I have like a calmness toward me. When I enter that place, like all the side effects from life in general, from work, from relationships, all go away as I connect more with Mother Mary and God toward me. So I believe that Weston should be a heritage place so people have calmness in their lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Do any specific questions from my members for this particular speaker? Seeing none, we'll move on to Olga Rubino. Welcome, Olga. You've got
everyone.
5 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm a retired French immersion high school department head and supervising principal of elementary international languages program with the Toronto Catholic District School Board. And I've served the community in education for over 40 years. So my first connection would be with regards to education to the property. My other connection is also the Catholic faith and the miracles. And that on a personal note, my aunt, Esterina Colaguori, who is currently 97 years of age, she was one of the original volunteers at the Marian Shrine of Gratitude, and she worked there with many other people, approximately an original group of 20 people. And she worked there as a volunteer for 17 years. And she herself had witnessed and been part of many of the miracles that have taken place there. So I'll first speak to the education piece, even though right now we're not dealing with the chapel in the building, but I did want to give a little bit of my point of view on that. So St. Basil the Great College at 3100 Weston Road was the first Catholic high school to serve the northwestern area of Toronto. The red brick building was the original Catholic high school, and education and regular religious practices were held in the chapel. Research papers have shown the historical evidence and importance of the Catholic education movement in the 1800s via the British North America Act and the famous Tiny Township case in 1925. And from there, that case, we have the creation of the Catholic school system in the province of Ontario, which is historical and unique. So the preservation of the chapel and the school honor this history. Now I'll go to my second point, the prayer and personal affiliation, a case to honor the historical importance of the Tudor-style building and Marian Shrine and the gazebo that's on the property as a personal place of prayer and worship. Even though the building is the home of the Ukrainian Basilian Fathers affiliated with the Catholic faith, however, it is really a place that serves the spiritual needs of everyone in the community. anyone from near and far and from any faith or cultural background, anyone who requested spiritual support and personal support. Regardless of religion, gender, nationality, cultural background, or affiliation. All have always been welcome. Many miracles have been recorded after prayer at the Marian Shrine. And as I said, my aunt Esterina, and about 20 original members witnessed miracles. Also, the property, much money was donated by these original members and also by many people along the way. So personal funds, historic icons, Bible for the outdoor gazebo, free labor, all of that was donated to the shrine for the good of the entire community. In the cultural power of the community and the common knowledge that's woven into the mindset of the community, the property is considered to be a public property with access to everyone, not personal ownership of the property for financial personal gain. It's for the good of everyone in the community on a physical, moral, and spiritual level. So in conclusion, it's our duty, I feel, as Torontonians to maintain the site at 3100 Weston Road to be deemed as heritage in its entirety. The Tudor-style building, the gardens, the shrine, the gazebo, the prayer room, the school, the chapel in the school, the entire property, because of the importance that it holds for the entire community and the importance that it holds as a historical landmark. That's indelible in the minds and hearts of the Torontonians in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time here today. Next on our speakers list is Sam Aiello. And forgive me, and please correct my pronunciation. Is Sam here today, online or?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I'm here, yes.
Good morning. You have
How are you?
5 minutes.
My name is Sam Aiello, and I'm here today to talk about the serious situation concerning the Marian Shrine of Gratitude as a heritage site located at 3100 Weston Road, Toronto, Canada. Today, I would like to remember Father Basil, the founder of Marian Shrine of Gratitude, and tell you a bit of story so you can understand the reason of my presence here today. On October 4, 2004, one of the priests of the monastery had a serious accident in the garden under the monastery. The accident caused a perforation of one eye, making him blind. Father Basil, after praying to the Blessed for healing, the Lord granted him and healed both his eyes. Father Basil not only could see from the punctured eye, but his sight was completely restored and no longer wore glasses, already having major problem with his vision prior to the accident. At this point, Father Basil, with the permission of the Superior, built in the same place where the accident occurred, the Marian Shrine of Gratitude. Now let's talk about my personal experience at the shrine and why I'm supporting this case. In 2007, I was at home having dinner with a dear friend of mine, Tony Matta. Tony Matta suffered and is suffering today of a muscle disease called MS. During the evening, I asked him if he never took in consideration a trip to Our Lady of Lourdes, to ask Our Lady for a miracle, since Tony was a very religious person. Tony replied that Lourdes was here in town, a Weston Road and Shepherd. He told me that he felt Mother Mary's presence every time he visited the shrine. It was more convenient for him to go there than make a 7-hour trip because of his condition. The story of the shrine got me thinking, because in those days, I was far from God and with a lot of problems. I was looking for a way to put my spiritual life back together, and I didn't know what to do, and Tony had the solution for me. Tony told me about Angela Carboni and Father Basil's miracle. I asked Tony if it was possible for me to pray with Angie and Father Basil. He organized the meeting for me. A few days later, I was able to meet Angie and Angela at the community center, and while we were walking towards the shrine, I started smelling a strong smell of roses. And I asked Angela where the smell came from. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit emotional remembering that because it was a very special moment of my life. Angela, with a smile, replied that Mother Mary was next to me and she'd been waiting for me for a very long time. After that, at the shrine, I met Father Basil. We prayed and I felt new, I felt free, and from that day, I visit the shrine very often. I become very close to Father Basil, and I offer him my help every time I need a hand to organize an event or to do renovation work at the shrine. I will never be able to forget Father Basil and the shrine because he helped me, and the shrine helped me so much morally and spiritually. I know how dear the shrine was for him, and for this reason I'm here today, in honor of his memory and the love that he had for the Marian shrine of gratitude. The shrine was, and I hope it will be again, a piece of paradise and refuge for many souls from Toronto, from all around the world. Even the famous Bishop Mary Emanuel from Australia came all the way from Australia to visit Father Basil and to visit the shrine. The Marian shrine of gratitude was not only a place of miracles and hope. The shrine was an important place for the youth of the local community and all the Toronto area and surrounding. Angela Carboni and Father Basil every year used to organize Catholic Youth Day and thousands of kids from all Catholic schools around Toronto attended the event. It was a beautiful day of praying, singing, and happiness, and I hope these events will continue in the future. The Marian Shrine of Gratitude was a beacon of hope, and I hope it will be again for many, and I believe that 22,000 people that signed the petition for this matter. On behalf of the 22,000 people and myself, I ask to please support the designation of 3100 Weston Road as known as the Marian Shrine of Gratitude as a heritage site. Thank you for your time and have a blessed day.
Thank you very much for your time. Next on our list is
Thank you.
Robert Lyon. Welcome, Robert. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks for allowing me to speak today. So I'll just share my experience with the shrine. The Marian Shrine of Gratitude holds a very special place in my heart. I first visited the wonderful sanctuary about 15 years ago on invitation of one of my close friends who's here today, Joe, and he would like to speak, but I know that he's not on the list, but it would be nice if we could allow a few minutes from Joe. So when I first visited the shrine 15 years ago, approximately, it was at a time in my life when I was facing many personal challenges, including a marriage separation and a battle with alcoholism. And I was attracted to the shrine immediately and felt the presence of Mother Mary and the Holy Spirit. At that time, I was in desperate need for help in my life. And by God's grace, my life began to be transformed. Through many visits and many hours of prayer and meditation, my life was transformed. And I now have a wonderful marriage with a loving wife and 3 beautiful children, a close connection with my Catholic church at St. Timothy's in Orangeville, and a successful career in real estate. I was able to beat my battle with alcoholism. All of this was given to me as a gift from God, and the Marian Shrine was one of the key places where I developed, my foundation in my walk with the Lord. I was also able to bring my future family to visit the shrine and was fortunate enough to have them share in this miraculous place. I know without a doubt the shrine has had a large imprint on my life, and I also believe that the shrine has helped many others like me and can continue to help many others in the future in similar crisis situations. I hope that the decision makers and people elected in power find it in their hearts to keep this miraculous Marian Shrine open and available. And I don't have time here. I just want to mention on another note, I just think that, if there's any way maybe that people can work together to try to, accomplish everything and still be able to keep the shrine and have the person or the entity that purchased the property coexist, because there's always ways to work things out, right? And it's on a hill, and I don't think anything else can really be built on that hill. They could easily, in my opinion, just work around it and still have the shrine there. And what a great gesture that would be to as the owner to be able to say that they were able to be a part of this wonderful place. So God bless everybody, and I hope we can keep it alive. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for your time today. Next on our list is Teresa Lubinsky. Welcome, Teresa. You have 5 minutes when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Teresa Lubinsky, and I'm the school trustee at Etobicoke Lakeshore and Parkdale High Park of the Toronto Catholic District School Board. First, I'd like to thank Councillor Anthony Peruza and Councillor James Pasternak for submitting a motion to the City Council to request heritage designation at 3100 Weston Road. I also would like to thank the delegates that we just heard for sharing their personal stories and reliving their journeys, difficult parts. Thank you, delegates. This motion proposed complete protection of River Maid, the Gardner family's former country estate, and the Marian Shrine of Gratitude located at 3100 Weston Road, steps away from the banks of the Humber River. The Gardner's family opened their home, River Maid, to various charities and organizations, such as the Red Cross and Group Number 3 of the Women's Auxiliary of the St. Clair YMCA. The First Nations of North America used the Properties Trail as part of a trade group that connected northern and western Canada with Mexico's Gulf. In 1958, the Basilian Fathers purchased River Maid to use as a monastery and later filled in the outer swimming pool. This area evolved into a prayer garden called the Marian Shrine of Gratitude, where the public was welcomed, and where Father Basil Zimbalista created a Marian Shrine of Gratitude. After he passed away in 2018, the shrine remained public. People from Toronto, Ontario, and various parts of the world have visited the shrine. My family and I have been going there for about a decade. I know the spiritual value of the place from the people from different cultures who have visited the shrine. I was fortunate to see the interior of the house. The well-maintained original and historical structure is extraordinary. The City of Toronto needs to acknowledge the historical and cultural significance of River Maid and the architectural value of the home, the significance of the Gardner family in Toronto's history, and the evolution of the Marian Shrine of Gratitude as a prayer garden loved by thousands of people from various cultures. The shrine uniquely merges old and new values. The city needs to recognize its historical sites through the eyes of the new Canadians and immigrants, and River Maid offers that opportunity. In the fall of 2023, I began working with my colleagues at the Toronto Catholic District School Board to protect the property at 31 Weston Road. Together, we formed a motion that passed unanimously requesting that both the City of Toronto and the Government of Ontario designate the former Gardner family summer resort, the former Basilian Monastery House, including the Marian Shrine of Gratitude, located at 31 Weston Road in Toronto, as a heritage site protected by the Ontario Heritage Act. In this forgotten northern west corner of Toronto, there's no property stands with this wealth of heritage value. As an elected official, I am entrusted to protect people's needs, and I'm here to represent a number of my constituents from Etobicoke Lakeshore and Parkdale High Park. The Marian Shrine of Gratitude is the heritage of New Toronto, which includes multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-faith communities where people found spirituality, and where the shrine is our heritage now. The asphalt pathway from the parking lot to the shrine is a significant part of our heritage, demonstrating that it was public and accessible to everyone in Toronto until recently. Toronto is one of the most diverse cities in the world, and the Marian Shrine of Gratitude is an integral part of the park system that welcomes visitors from all backgrounds. It is important that the site reopens to the public. While the community appreciates that the Toronto Preservation Board recommends designating River Maid Cottage under the Ontario Heritage Act, certain physical elements, including the stone fireplace, historic wooden paneling, and the views from the cottage to the pond behind, The community asks to reconsider the entire site at 3100 Weston Road for a heritage designation to preserve its historical and cultural significance, as per the motion submitted by Councilor Perusa and Councilor Pasternak in 2023.
Thank you very much. You've reached your
That the
time
city will
limit.
accommodate its people. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time today. Next on our list is Marcia Claridad. Is Marcia with us today? No? Well, Sean, she's online. Perfect.
On a sec. Sorry.
Oh, we have, just give me a moment, please. One of those lovely technical hiccups as we balance hybrid.
Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Marcia, you're getting a little bit of feedback.
Okay, I will just try to turn off my video and be on my phone. I'll try to stay away from the video. Just a moment.
Marcia, if you have two devices, I think that's why we're getting that echoing effect. Marcia, well, we have a few of these technical difficulties. We're going to sort them out with you, I hope, and we're going to move on to Mr. Sean R. Delaney. Welcome. You have 5 minutes.
Good morning, distinguished members of the City of Toronto Heritage Committee and fellow guests. My name is Sean Delaney, and I'm the publisher of the Emery Village Voice, a community-based monthly newspaper serving the Emery Village area in Toronto. For the past 12 years, we have published wonderful stories about our community, the people who make it special, and the places and events that help make Emery such a wonderful place to call home. Our distribution is via Canada Post to every area home, our 3,200 businesses in Canada's largest industrial area, and is comprised of Steeles Avenue south to Highway 401 and bordered by the Humber River and the 400 highway to the east. Today I stand before you to advocate for the designation of the Marian Shrine of Gratitude and the historic Rivermead Cottage property of 3100 Weston Road as heritage sites. My wish is, and I believe that of the community, extends beyond protecting the spiritual significance of the shrine, but seeks to preserve the entire property, including the remarkable examples of Tudor-style architecture. This style, characterized by distinctive, steeply pitched gabled roofs, tall, narrow windows, and prominent decorative chimneys, is increasingly rare in our urban landscape. The Tudor architectural elements of Rivermead Cottage not only add aesthetic value, but also windows into the design preferences of Toronto's early 20th century elite. Such architectures offers us a tangible connection to our city's past, and providing context and depth to our understanding of the historical lifestyle and building practices. In 1958, this property was entrusted to the Ukrainian Basilian brothers, who transformed it into a sanctuary of peace and prayer. Among the ancient trees and meticulously maintained gardens, they established the Marian Shrine of Gratitude, which has since become the cornerstone of spiritual life in our Emery community. The shrine, set against the backdrop of the Rivermead Cottage, symbolizes the community between our past and presence, reflecting our commitment to preserving spaces that offer tranquility and reflection. Our transformation of the site over the years has been thoughtfully and inclusively managed. The conversion of the former pool house to a chapel and filling in the swimming pool to make way for Stations of the Cross have made this sacred place fully accessible, allowing everyone to participate in its offering. The Emery Village Voice has published over 30 articles related to 3100 Weston Road. These pieces have not only enriched our community's knowledge of its historical background, but also highlighted the dedicated storytelling of residents like Edith George and Tim Lambrinos, our historian, whose efforts help keep our collective memories alive. The significance of this site extends beyond its physical boundaries. Our community has shown profound support for the shrine through numerous vigils and public appeals, especially when its future was under threat from property sales and potential closures, which did indeed happen. These actions highlight the deep emotional and spiritual connections to our many in our community that share this place. However, recent developments have put the shrine at risk, obviously, raising significant concerns about continued public access, which now does not exist, and the preservation of the site's historical and spiritual aspects. I urge the Toronto Heritage Committee to consider these points and the robust community support for preserving both Rivermead Cottage and the Marian Shrine of Gratitude. Thank you for your attention and consideration. Let's ensure that the Marian Shrine of Gratitude and Rivermead Cottage are not only preserved as treasures of the past, but they can continue to be a vibrant and living part of our community's future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Are we able to, we'll try Marcia again. She's not online right now. We asked her to try reconnecting. All right, moving on to Sonia D'Agostino. Sonia, is she online? She's not online at the moment, but if she pops back up, we'll make sure that she has space to speak as well. The next on my list is Jay McKillen. Welcome, Jay. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I moved in near the shrine. I moved in there about 3 years ago. Didn't even know the shrine existed. I looked on Google and saw it. I made a plan to go see it. 3 days later, I finally stuck to that plan. Unfortunately, it was in the middle of a severe winter storm. It's late at night, about 2 o'clock in the morning. The man I moved into that house with, I found out afterwards, was a priest. He didn't tell me if he was Catholic or Christian. So I told him I was going to the shrine. I just wanted him to know because I have a bad heart and I'm at high risk for stroke. So just in case I didn't come back, he could walk down the path to find me. It wasn't far from the house. And I told him my intent was just to go there to just say a simple prayer. That everybody who goes there sees Jesus and finds Jesus and gets closer to him. And when I went there, it was really cold, so I went inside the shrine right away, and I opened up the Bible just to a random page, and right away it opened up to the temple of the law will be restored by the Lord. So it clearly showed my intent of going there, me randomly opening a Bible that shows the Lord's going to restore the temple and bring back the laws. I saw it like it was divine nature speaking. So after that, I didn't even say my prayer yet. I just left the shrine and I walked around. It was my first time there. And I noticed lights as I was walking were turning on. And when I walked up to another light, it turned off, and I thought, well, that's kind of weird. I'm walking past the motion lights, and they're turning on. How come this light's not turning on? And I waved my hand in front of it, trying to figure out why this light's not coming on. And I just kind of ignored it, kept walking around, and I walked to every little plaque there, and one light kept shining and blinking above it, and it was the one that says Ukraine. I guess that's the purpose of a lot of reasoning behind the shrine. So I walked up the stairs. I have spinal cord injury, so it's hard for me to walk, and when I'm cold, it really hurts. So I walked up the stairs and where the statue of Jesus was, and I said my prayer for them. And I came back down, and when I came back down, I noticed some of those lights were blinking again, and that's when I walked past it, and the lights were going off. They weren't going on, and as I was walking past, that's when I realized they're not motion lights. And I'm very spiritual. I've been doing things like this, just opening my Bible at random times ever since I was a child. And when I open it, it specifically tells me something of nature in my life that is happening right at that time. It's like God guides my finger. And that's the same thing that happened when I went to that temple. I opened up that Bible and it said, the law of the temple is going to be restored by the Lord. It took a lot of courage for me to phone up and ask about these lights, and if they were solar lights, I just had to know, because I knew in my heart it was God, and I've gone through these things before, and I've seen spiritual things happen like this. And I spoke to a lady there, I guess that might have been Angie Carbone, who was online, and I've never met anybody here, and I guess maybe with my intent going there to have everybody get closer to Jesus might not have been the greatest thing at a Catholic shrine, but temple means shrine, and that's exactly where I opened my finger was guided. And all I asked was everybody there gets closer to Jesus. I just found out today that you guys ripped down the shrine. It's not even there anymore. I guarantee you people and the developers listening to me, if you find out the people who ripped that down, I guarantee they'll tell you, if you ask them and they're honest with you, they've had dreams, they've had visions, they've seen signs and wonders and things that they might have second questioned what they've done. That ground is sacred. I've made prayers there. I'm not anybody special, but he who is in me is greater than he who is in this world. And there's thousands of other people who have made prayers there. So if you guys are going to make this as a heritage site, I wish you would, and do it as a religious heritage site, not just a city heritage site. And if you're not going to listen to me or anyone behind us or anyone involved, you can even look at it like the ghost walks that you guys do. That place is of highly spiritual significance. A lot of things happen there. And as that lady who confirmed with me when I spoke to her, she told me, no, those lights aren't solar lights. She told me who she thought it was Mary, but I know in my heart, through going through experience like this 50 times over, at least just through this experience I'm telling you, has happened to me in my life before. I pay attention to things and I listen to God and I go where I'm sent by Jesus and needed in his name. And I can tell you now, those lights that were going on and off, there was things that happened on the way there, things that happened there that were trying to stop me from my intent on going there, trying to not let my thumb be guided when I opened up that Bible to my intent of having the temple of the law be restored by Jesus. And that's exactly what's happened. So
Thank you, Jay. Your time is up, but I really appreciate the time you've taken to give us today. Next on our list is Gianfranco Cristiano. Welcome, you've got 5 minutes.
Good morning. Thank you for making the time for all of us to say our piece, and I'll try my best not to be repetitive. I think everybody has their own story that's true to their heart. For myself, I moved into the area in 2019, and some family difficulties with my mother-in-law, who was diagnosed with cancer. Through a friend, he told me about the Marian Shrine of Gratitude, and I've always gone to Fatima, and I've always gone to many different religious places like Maitland. And when I went there, I was completely amazed at how beautiful this place was, right in the heart of the city, Weston and Shepherd. No need to travel far away. When I learned more about the place, to hear that Cardinal Collins visited that place and had mass there. Many priests have had mass there. Schools have had trips where they brought their kids there and spent half a day there. There's people that come from outside of Toronto, outside of Ontario, outside of Canada. There's people that's been documented from the States where they came to visit this place here. And For myself, when I would go there praying for many people, I found it as a place of solace, a place where I can just sit back and just, borderline meditate and just be with my thoughts. And many people would say this is a religious site specifically for Catholics or Christians. It's not, because when I was there one night, it was around 9 o'clock at night, I saw a mother and a daughter who were Muslim. Visually, you can see them. And they came, and I was a little bit, saying, oh, wow, like, I never really seen anybody other than, from an outside religion visually that you can see, because at the end of the day, you don't know what denomination people are. And I had the courage to talk to them, and they basically said, whether we think Jesus is the Son of God or whether we think he's a prophet, it doesn't matter to us. What we feel when we come here is something that we don't feel anywhere else. And it really hit me. So this is a place that brings many people, different religions together. And we have to remember what this means to the community. The community kept this place alive. Doesn't matter who purchased it, because at the end of the day, if we had known that the place was for sale, there are many prominent people that would have came forth to purchase the property. Nobody knew. It was never listed. It was never communicated. It was like the rug just came from underneath us. We just got a notice that it was sold, and we were just, our hearts dropped. So we really hope that you take into consideration everybody's story and what this place truly means to the community, because the community really kept this place alive. There is no running water. We have stand that's in the corner there sitting down that would collect the storm water to water the plants, solar lights, people would donate to get candles there. Everything was kept alive by the people. And to have a place to go whenever you need it, just the time to yourself, is something that in today's age, we need it. We truly need it. So I really hope you do consider and make everything, including the Marian Shrine of Gratitude, part of the heritage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have John Biafore. Welcome, John. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to be here, to be with all of you. I'm one of the original board members of Angie Carboni's group, St. Bernadette's Family Resource Center, a charitable organization, and I've been with her now for over 15 years as on her board. And so I had the pleasure to go with her when she originally started St. Bernadette's Family Resource Center, charitable, at the Marian Shrine of Gratitude. So I worked in a room, and I'm involved in the ministry of handing out prayer cards and everything to students. So I was in a room there where I was able to store my stuff and appreciatedly hand them out to the students who were there, and also to bring them to the shrine where the people gathered together. And it is my heartfelt situation to be with the people who came to the shrine. Every Saturday morning, we used to meet there, and every second Saturday morning, we would pray the rosary, and we would pray what they call the 2,000 Hail Marys. In one day, 18 or 20 people would pray the rosary and say 2,000 Hail Marys from 9 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. And this is 50, on every rosary there is 50, 10, 5 times 10 plus 3 is 53. And we pray 2,000 rosaries on the second Saturday of every month for 8 months, from 9 a.m. in the morning till 6 p.m. at night. And it was my pleasure then also to have processions around the inner part of the shrine, and every second weekend, we would have foremost big shrines out in the field where the soccer field was. So my pleasure of being a member of her board and being at the Marian Shrine of Gratitude was in my heartfelt situation that I was thankful to God and the Blessed Virgin Mary for all my time that I was able to spend there for nearly 15 years. And it was a pleasure and a board pleasure to be there and to be a member with all the people that come there. And I'm just hoping that it can still maintain its necessary status as what it is today. Thank you, and God bless you all for my time.
Thank you so very much for your time. Next, we have Joshua Botticelli. Joshua? No? I don't have that name. No, the next name on my list is Joshua Botticelli. Not online. All right. It's not online. Is Marcia back online? No, okay. Now, Councillor Anthony Peruzza, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Your turn.
It's my turn. Okay. First of all, I want to start off by really thanking you folks and the Preservation Board, and specifically Larissa, for an amazing and thorough report that you have in front of you today. And I'm hoping that you will move her recommendations here, or staff recommendations, which fundamentally do a couple of things. One, look at Rivermead Cottage or Rivermead House and the vista, and say, you know what, it meets 6 of the 9, designation criteria and should be designated, and that's wonderful. In my view, I've read this, and I'm a simpleton, and I would check off all 9, but that's just me. But you only need 2. 6 is good, and that's fine. And I also want to thank her for recognizing the entire site and its importance, not only from a heritage perspective, and essentially extending the bylaw over the entire site for the time being, until there is a further opportunity to take a look at some of the other elements, like the chapel, the school, and the rest of the property, and do sort of a proper and thorough assessment of it for its heritage value. Because that also speaks to something else that we all instinctively know, who have lived in that area and continue to call that place home, that this site is fundamentally important to all of us, at the center of the community of sorts, and certainly very much in our hearts and minds. Having said that, I just want to turn my mind to, and I'm hoping that you support those recommendations, because that's what they will do, and we will all be very happy with that. I just want to turn my mind for a second to the shrine. So when the property was in transition to be sold, I attended several events before that happened at the shrine, where hundreds of people had gathered. And I'm just going to speak to that connection in a second. But I also want to say something else to you. That while there is an assessment of the shrine and a bit of a history in the report, which you've all taken a look at, the shrine holds a very, very special place, as you've heard, in the minds and hearts of a great many people. Toronto Preservation Board is sitting here today, and the shrine has been a place of worship and attendance for the past 17, 18 years. And while that may seem like a very, very short history, and to think, and I want to go back to my attendance at the site where I witnessed firsthand the connection that people have spiritually to this place and the bond therein. It's not one you can break. So while the Basilian Fathers in their last day on their way out, the new group, were trying to throw cold water on people's spiritual beliefs by taking away the statues and some of the other symbols that made up the shrine. Let me give you another example. The Romans, the way they thought they were going to snuff out Christianity was by taking Christians and feeding them to the lions in the Colosseum. How well did that go for them? It didn't. Jesus lives. He's here amongst us today. The Basilian Fathers or the new owners trying to throw cold water on a spiritual belief will have the same effect. That fire will burn brighter and hotter going forward. So there will be a preservation board, and while you look at it and you say Ontario Regulation 906, doesn't really sort of allow us to take a look at the shrine per se, or some of the chattels and things that have been removed from the shrine and fully assess. I say to you this, 100 years from now, a preservation board is going to be sitting here. And you know what? The shrine will continue to exist. So we can recognize it early, and recognize it for all of its merit, or we can just simply continue on, but it will continue on as well. The owner should know that, you should know that, and I think everybody else here understands that. I hope you include that as well. Thank you very much. And the last thing I want to say, I'd like to invite all the good people that have taken the time to come out here today to my office for some refreshments at the end of this, okay? So please, you're all welcome.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you.
Next on our list is Samuel Babs.
Thank you for me to speak today. Can you hear me?
Sure can. You've got 5 minutes.
Perfect. Mayor McDonald's Preservation Board members, ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today to address an issue that highlights a troubling lack of transparency, fairness, and honesty from our city authorities. More importantly, I believe this matter reveals deeper systemic inequities, including racial bias, that have influenced the action taken against me and this property. The property in question, located at 3100 Weston Road, has been at the center of this controversy. For 8 years, the city refrained from designating this property as heritage, despite ample of opportunity to do so. Why? It is evident that the closer relationship between the city and the previous owner, the church, influenced this delay, conveniently ensuring no impact on the church's property prior to closing of the property. The city is well aware, had this property been designated earlier prior to closing, it would affect the sellability and the value of the property. The closer relationship between the city and the church goes back in time, starting with the city leasing the community center on the property 20 years ago. Another property at 20 Sturview Lane, adjacent to the city's property at 60 Sturview Lane, which the city purchased in 2015. In March 2024, the city entered into an easement agreement on the church property at 20 Sturview Lane, paying a sum of $1.7 million plus additional $700,000 to use part of the church land for parking spaces. Yet, despite the significant transaction, the city's clear involvement with the church, the property at 3100 Weston Road remained undesignated as heritage for years. Why was this designation suddenly pursued after my involvement? This is this timeline raises serious concerns about racial motivations and unequal treatment under the law. On August 22nd, 2023, I closed on the property. Astonishingly, 2 days later, August 24th, 2023, the Toronto Catholic School Board sent out an email urging government agencies, both provincially and municipal, to support the heritage designation of the property. By September 1st, 2023, the multilingual newspaper published a note claiming that a motion to designate this property had already been introduced. However, this information was inaccurate, as the motion was officially introduced on September 6, 2023. These actions make it evident that the city and the councilman had predetermined the outcome before my closing on August 22nd. I was misled throughout this process due to lack of transparency. At no point prior to closing was this critical information disclosed to me. This failure to disclose constitutes a lack of honesty and transparency and fairness. More disturbingly, this reveals lack of equal application of the law, potentially influenced by my racial background. I'm Black. This is not only unjust, but also breach of principles of fairness and equality enshrined in the Canadian Charters of Rights and Freedoms. The city's delay designation efforts and subsequent action have directly negatively impacted the property's marketability, despite the fact that the church itself had dismantled the shrine in question, and despite the fact that other entities such as Winnipeg Church and Rome do not even recognize the shrine. The city moved swiftly, just 7 days after closing, to push forward the designation. Why this certain urgency? This time is combined with failures to act for years beforehand. This strongly suggests a bias in how I, as a person of color, have been treated in comparison to others. This issue goes beyond one property. It speaks to systemic inequities, racial motivations, and lack of impartiality in making decisions. The city's close relationship with the church, the previous owner, coupled with its disparate treatment of me, undermines the public trust in our institutions and their ability to uphold fairness and justice for all citizens, regardless of race. I call on the city to address these concerns and provide accountability, not just for me, but for the integrity of our processes and the principle of fairness and equality that every citizen deserves. It is time to confront systemic inequalities and ensure such actions are never repeated.
Thank
Now,
you
I must
very
say,
much, Mr. Babs. Your
failure to
time is
act
up.
comes with huge legal ramifications. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Babs, for joining us today. We have two more speakers. Yusuf Mirabel. Welcome. You have 5 minutes.
Good morning. Good morning and peace, brothers and sisters. It's the way I see you all. At the end and at the beginning at the end. A religious place that gives hopes to the people, to the community. But it's beautiful to see that a shrine starts with an act of a miracle, something that happens that motivates, or a message that comes to a person that creates a place for others to come and seek for something that if you don't have in your heart what is required, you won't be finding it. But it's important that you look at it the way that it was a shrine created and thousands of people had come. Well, it was a first miracle, and I think I'm the last one of the days. No, the last one that is gonna happen. I am this last miracle. A few days ago, I was contacted by a friend and they asked me for help to come and, to help with this beautiful cause. And I am a religious person. I have a deconversion about 9 months ago. And from a big path of my life, of being lost, being struggling, and being making mistakes. I've been saved by my Lord, His presence, Jesus and Christ. I can testify that, and by the mother, His mother. And it's beautiful how she has called me to not only to come over here in dreams, but ended up going yesterday in the middle of a snowstorm to kneel in the fence limits of this beautiful place that now is being sabotaged. It's horrendous to see what some people interest or some people lack of understanding can do to a place so sacred. I went there for first time yesterday. I kneel, and they can take the statues out of it. It's being an overgrowth. They had destroyed what people had created for so many years with faith. Faith. You can only see it when it's given to you and it's open to you and your eyes were open. I am the last miracle because I went yesterday there in the middle of a snowstorm. I kneel and I pray my rosary, and the sky was open and the sun came upon me, and they can do whatever they want, as you said before. Mother Mary is right there, and people can go, and I will go. And it's amazing to see that we were not the only ones present. We were an 85-year-old man, miracle, a lady, a woman that I met with such a passion as Angie, that she has put everything in place and in her heart because it's by command. We don't act in where everybody will act. We act on faith and by command, a spiritual command. The Lord tell us what to do. Our mother, Mary, tell us what to do. And I've been told to come in here today. I wouldn't do this for myself, on my own gain. I wouldn't do this, but I come in here to tell you that it is really important, because I went yesterday there and I have gained hope, love, light, and truth, and the strength to come and speak to all of you, and thank you all for your time, for your beautiful, because I can feel it, your feelings, your thoughts, your questions. But you know what? It's a miracle that I'm in here talking to all of you without being nervous, without being justifying the cause. I had nothing to gain, nothing to lose. I don't know most of the people here, but I can tell you, this city needs that shrine. This world needs that shrine. I need that shrine. And I'm a common single citizen that will nobody know, because I seek nothing. I only seek my Lord and my mother. Thank you very much to all of you, and please save the shrine, but not only the shrine. This is a year proclaimed by our Pope and by our church. It's a year of hope, pilgrims of hope. It's a Jubilee year, which is hope that keep us going. Hope in our city, hope in our politicians, hope in our brothers and sisters. We need to work together. I think we have the chance. Here it is. When you give hope to people, you are giving people love. And then our Lord, when you give love to people, the Lord is there. Jesus is there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to all of you.
Sorry, I just want to throw in, like, nobody's going to address the fact that Mr. Babs.
I'm going to give us time. We're going to have some questions, and then, so how this is going to run, we have one more speaker, and then we'll have questions of our speaker from the members of the board, and then we'll direct some questions towards staff. And what we've listened really intently, and I was going to say this at the end, but to all of the deputants, thank you so much for your time, for your honesty. You've come here and you've done something very vulnerable, and that's not lost on all of us, and that goes towards all the speakers. So so thank you. So we've taken everything that we've heard, and the members who have been listening will then be able to direct appropriate questions to staff in order to address some of the issues that have come up today with respect to the matter before us under the Heritage Act. So that's how things that work. And so without further ado, we'll take to Joe D'Souza, who is our final speaker on the list today. Welcome, Joe. You have 5 minutes.
I'm just going to say what's in my heart, okay? The shrine, I've received so many graces there. It is such a peaceful place. And I'm begging you all, the committee members, to bring back the shrine to us. We need it. And I've taken a lot of friends down there who were sick, who had emotional problems, and they have been all helped. Their sicknesses and whatever they had, it's all gone. Mother Mary and Jesus and Mother Mary is always there for us. I'm pleading with you all to please bring the shrine to us. It's one place that I went, and some of my friends went, when the things were really going down, very low. I had a lot of personal problems too. But that's one place that gave me peace and happiness. So please, I'm begging you to give us back the shrine. With your help, I'm sure we will get it back. God bless you all and your families.
Thank you very much. Thank you again to all of our speakers today, to my fellow members who are both on video and in person. Do we have any questions for any of the speakers? And we can direct it. Seeing none, we're going to move on to questions for staff. Do we have any of those? Adam.
Hello, can people hear me?
Now we can.
Wonderful. Thank you, Madam Chair. To staff, could you speak to the process in regards to how a shrine is different than a public monument and memorial in terms of designation? We have a number of public monuments and memorials that have been designated. I'm thinking of the ones in Queen's Park and along University Avenue, such as the War Memorial. And how does that differ from a shrine in terms of designation capacity or listing capacity in terms of the legislation? Thank you.
Thanks for your question through the chair. It's a little difficult thing for us to answer relative to this particular case because we didn't look at those definitions. We were using the Heritage Act criteria and applying it to the property. And so that was our lens. We weren't trying to figure out what was a shrine, what wasn't a shrine, or what was a statue, or that was not part of our consideration. So I know that's not a very helpful answer to your question, but it's not a question we considered.
Thank you. Other questions of staff? Adam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My second and hopefully final question on this item. Could you speak in capacity to I note that the view is a protected element. It's listed at the very bottom of those designation criteria, the panoramic view and the view along the property. Could you speak in regards to how a view is protected and what elements that entails? Because I know a number of people have asked for a consideration of the entire property. How is that view framed in the legislative capacities?
Well, the views, since they are considered to be part of the value of the property and attributes, if there were, changes to the property proposed that severed the view, that would be noted. And but as far as anything more technical than that doesn't exist for this. So it's an
Thank you.
attribute amongst many.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions of staff? Seeing none, I have a staff report with recommendations before us. Would anybody care to move the recommendations in that report?
Madam Chair, were we going to have discussion amongst ourselves?
Yes, we are. Thank you. Oh, my goodness. Discussion amongst ourselves. Thank you, Paul. Does anybody have anything to contribute? Paul, please.
I did want to say a couple of things. One, I do think it's important for, given so many people have come and spoken, I just thought I would reflect on the two things that I certainly heard this morning, so that people, you know, wonder what the reaction was. One was simply that clearly this is a very significant place to a great many people. I think that's broadly proven. And the other thing that I think is worth kind of keeping on the record is clearly the biggest step forward, or the biggest thing that people expressed a desire for, is enhanced and confirmed or legal public access to the site. And designation may or may not contribute to that, but I think that's a kind of a vision or a goal that has to be kind of hanging above all of what we discuss. I did prickle a little and felt I had to rebut a little. This is a property that was listed since 2005. So for an owner to say they were not aware of a historical significance, and there's also a very clear public record of large gatherings that public gatherings and access by the public for a long period of time before the sale. So again, I do feel we hear this so often from owners of properties. I didn't know there's kind of a minimum level of buyer beware. And I think this is a case where the public interest in the property was easily discoverable. You know, a 15-second check of the register during title search would have brought this all to light. So I don't personally have much sympathy for these arguments of, gee, I was caught by surprise on the whole thing. I think this issue was clearly in public view for a long time. So just having said all of that, I'll stop there, but strongly support the staff recommendation.
Is there other discussion amongst ourselves? I'd say that I particularly appreciate the third recommendation, which directs the Senior Manager Heritage Planning to look more robustly at the property as a cultural heritage landscape. I think that's a really positive step to go forward and allows us to weave those different historical periods in a really meaningful way. So I look forward to that work going forward. Is there any other discussion? Adam?
I would just like to thank Paul for raising that point of buyers beware, because it is something we often hear. And thank you for framing that in such a polite way.
If there's no other discussion, now as I realize I look on both sides of the room, I didn't mean to ignore you, Paul. Would anybody care to remove the recommendations in the staff report? Paul, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Motion carries. Thank you very, very much. Moving on now to PB 26.2, 2931. Thank you very much, Councillor. Thank you for attending today. Unfortunately, no, yeah, you have your 5 minutes. But thank you very much for being here. We really appreciated it. The next item on our agenda is PB 26.2, 2931, and 33 Sussex Avenue, Notice of Intention to Designate a Property. This one was held. We have a staff presentation. Do we care to hear the presentation?
Madam Chair, yes, because there's different information in the presentation following some corrections to the written report.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Welcome back, and I'll turn it over to staff. Hi, Larissa.
Hello again, everyone. I will be presenting on item PB 26.2, 2931, and 33 Sussex Avenue.
Hold on, Larissa, I'm just going to pause you for a second. Our public gallery is just clearing, and my hearing isn't what it used to be. Okay, Larissa, thank you very much.
No problem. I'll start from the top again. I'll be presenting on item PB 26.2, 29, 31, and 33 Sussex Avenue, Notice of Intention to Designate a Property under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Next slide, please. The subject properties are located on the south side of Sussex Avenue between Huron Street and Spadina Avenue in the Huron-Sussex neighborhood in the northwest quadrant of the University of Toronto's St. George campus. Next slide, please. Commonly known as the Three Sisters, the subject properties are part of a trio of originally identical Second Empire-style house form buildings that were constructed in 1879. The property at 29 Sussex Avenue, along with the property at 33 Sussex Avenue, were listed on the Heritage Register in November 2016. The middle property, located at 31 Sussex Avenue, was included on the City of Toronto's inaugural inventory of heritage properties over 50 years ago in 1973 and is listed on the Heritage Register. In 2013, 31 Sussex Avenue was the subject of an engineering retrofit project called Gemini House and was rehabilitated. The subject properties are currently owned by the University of Toronto. City staff consulted with the University of Toronto Assistant Vice President, University Planning in preparing this report. Staff have determined that the properties at 29, 31, and 33 Sussex Avenue have cultural heritage value and meet 5 of the Ontario Regulation 906 criteria prescribed for municipal designation under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Next slide, please. The properties at 29, 31, and 33 Sussex Avenue have design value as being 3 properties which comprise a rare trio of house form buildings that are representative examples of the Second Empire style with towers located in the Huron-Sussex neighborhood. The style is evident to varying degrees at each property, including in the mansard roofs, the corner towers, the polychromatic brick cladding, and the shane detailing in the tower, the decorative windows as well, and in the wood brackets. It can also be seen in the front entrances at 31 and 33 Sussex Avenue. In their overall form, massing, and design elements, the properties also display a high degree of craftsmanship. Next slide, please. The subject properties have historical value as they contribute to an understanding of the unique character of the late 19th century Huron-Sussex neighborhood within the University of Toronto St. George campus, which is defined by its residential streetscapes and low-rise collection of house-form buildings. The properties at 29, 31, and 33 Sussex Avenue comprise the earliest surviving houses on Sussex Avenue and survive today as a remnant of a larger Victorian residential neighborhood that spanned to the south and which was redeveloped as part of the West Campus expansion by the University of Toronto. Contextually, the properties are important in defining and supporting the late 19th century residential scale and character of the Huron-Sussex neighborhood, which is primarily comprised of single-family houses of 2 to 3 stories. The properties are physically, visually, and historically linked to their surroundings, maintaining the integrity of the historic neighborhood streetscape while contributing to its variety as part of a distinctive Second Empire trio, commonly referred to as the Three Sisters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have no speakers on this item, but do we have questions of staff? Adam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm wondering if any interior elements or design elements were considered. I'm particularly thinking of Gemini House. That engineering retrofit included very, very careful restoration of the grand ballroom ceiling. If you look at Gemini House online, you'll find interior photographs as well as a grand curved staircase. I think those interior elements absolutely should be protected. They are absolutely stunning Victorian plasterwork details in an almost Beaux Arts fashion. So was any consideration given to interior elements, and could we perhaps include those within the designation report?
Larissa, are you able to speak to this one?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, no problem. So we actually didn't get interior access to any of the properties, so none of the interior elements were considered.
Are there other questions of staff? Adam?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Larissa, you had mentioned you were working with the university on this project. Would there perhaps be an opportunity, and I'm looking at potentially a motion to look at interior elements as available? Certainly the university and ERA architects on their websites have interior photographs of 31 Gemini as it exists, or 31 Sussex as it exists as Gemini House. Those are publicly available photographs showing the heritage interior elements.
That may be a question better suited for Tamara to answer.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. It's Tamara Cartwright, Program Manager for Heritage and Policy. I would just say that one of the motivations for us of doing this designation was in part because we had already had substantial work done, research and evaluation, when we did the listing at the report in 2016. And the dialogue with the University of Toronto as a very good steward of these properties, it wasn't our intent to extend the designation further into the interior itself. It's not to say that that couldn't happen at a future date, but we are working with the university on the sites in particular. And one of the things that we're also looking at is that some new information came about one of the previous owners, a longtime owner, a professor of this. And so we do have the opportunity for us, at least on the historical or associative value, to have that material updated in time for a council decision. So just saying that that material is pending. I would say at this point, or at this time, it's up to the board as to whether or not they wish us to look at interior attributes. But I would say at this point, the report is robust to be able to designate these three sisters that, once again, are legacy listed properties, and we are moving ahead as quickly as we can to get as many of these in place, but before the expiration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions of staff? Adam?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to say I will be bringing a motion forward to have consideration of those interior elements, and to the board, I will be sending interior photographs for your consideration. So we'll be going back and forth by email on that.
Adam, this is discussion. Yeah. We're going to get there next, and clearly I'm going to have to table this. If you could submit your motion in writing to clerks now, I'm going to table this right away to move on, because clearly we've got some other discussion points. I'd also suggest send whatever you so choose. It's harder for us to read and look at things as we're trying to keep our focus on the agenda at hand. So we're tabling PB 26.2 and then moving on to PB 26.3, 1778, 1908, 1914, 1920, and 1926 Bloor Street West, inclusion on the Heritage Register. Gary is here with a presentation. To my fellow members, shall we listen to it? Yes, thank you very much. Hi, Gary, welcome.
Is that on now? Yes, okay, good. All right, thank you. My name is Gary Miedema. I'm a project manager with Heritage Planning, and I'm pleased to present this report today, and I'd like to recognize the help of Lindsay Parsons and Emma Dodens in preparing this report. The report recommends the properties at 1778, 1908, 1914, 1920, and 1926 Bloor Street West for inclusion on the Heritage Register as listed properties. Next slide, please. As the map shows on the left, the subject properties are located in the High Park North neighborhood, and High Park is the large green space to the south on that map. The property at 1778 Bloor Street West is located on the northeast corner of Bloor Street West and Mountain View Avenue. And then the four other properties at 1908, 1914, 1920, and 1926 Bloor Street West are located on the north side of Bloor Street West, between High Park Avenue to the east and Quebec Avenue to the west. All 5 properties were constructed between circa 1927 and 1930 and contain early 20th century walk-up apartment buildings. Staff have undertaken research and valuation for the properties at 1778, 1908, 1914, 1920, and 1926 Bloor Street West, and believe that the properties have cultural heritage value or interest and meet at least one of the criteria prescribed in Ontario Regulation 906 for including a non-designated property on a municipal register under Section 27 of the Ontario Heritage Act. The properties were identified together, and that's the kind of the text on this slide, as having potential heritage value through the Bloor Street West Heritage Conservation District study. So there's been a history of evaluation on these properties. And they were identified through the HCD study and as contributing to the character of this portion of Bloor Street West, which fronts onto High Park through the Bloor West Village Avenue study. Previously identified through 2 other studies as having contextual value, and staff bring that forward today. Next slide. And we'll go through some of the individual properties here. 1778 Bloor Street West was constructed circa 1929, and it's known historically as the Mount View Garden Apartments, and it holds design value as a representative example of an early 20th century walk-up apartment building with arts and crafts movement influences. Next slide, and we're going to move further west to the grouping of 4. Constructed circa 1930, the property at 1908 Bloor Street West holds design value as an early 20th century walk-up apartment building with arts and crafts movement influences. The property is also associated with well-known Toronto architect Frank S. Mallory. Next slide, please. And final grouping of 3. These properties were constructed between circa 1928 and 1930. And the properties at 1914, 1920, and 1926 Bloor Street West, known respectively as High Park Manor, Sunny South Apartments, and Park Manor Apartments, have design value as representative examples of early 20th century walk-up apartment buildings with Edwardian classical influences. And I would love to live in a Sunny South Apartments. That's the end of the presentation.
Thank you very much. Wouldn't we all like to live in something sunny and maybe not quite so cold as today? My screen just, oh, there we go. Hello. Do we have any questions of staff? Adam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gary, I understand there's several other walk-up buildings that are not being part of this listing report along those same few blocks. Can you speak in a bit more detail about how these ones were selected specifically?
As you know, staff bring forward properties based on a number of reasons, some of which we can speak to and some of which are confidential. So we're bringing these properties forward today and pulled out from the rest of those properties that have been identified along the north side of Bloor Street West.
Thank you. Other questions of staff? Peter.
That's a great question, and I think I can pass to Tamara, who's approaching the mic.
Good morning. Yes, still good morning. Through the chair, the Heritage Conservation District study itself has been completed by our consultants, and the findings are continuing to be integrated into a planning framework for Bloor West Village. And we had a public meeting in November about the cultural heritage value along this corridor from the bridge all the way over to the Old Mill Bridge all the way over to the Keel Street. So that is out on a public record. The HCD at this study at this point, where we're bringing forward our recommendations on that study as part of the final direction on the planning framework itself. And in particular for us, it's an area that is under great transition because of these MTSAs and variety of things. But it's an excellent study that was done in collaboration or in alignment with the urban design guidelines. But at this point, we're not ready to bring that study recommendations ultimately to the board. We're still trying to integrate it with a planning framework. But all the heritage sites or potential heritage sites within the study area have been publicly sort of shared with the community, including these properties.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions of staff? Seeing none, is there discussion amongst ourselves? Jeff?
Just simply sort of a comment. I noticed that the city planning is going to avenues policy at the next meeting of Planning and Housing Committee, and it will do away with the requirement of a pre-avenue study. And so I noticed that the comment from staff here that this information about heritage came out of an avenue study. So a bit of a regret here that we might be losing an opportunity to, to ancillary studies, heritage, we may be losing that opportunity for that information and moving forward on the heritage front. A little bit of concern that I have, but it's more relevance obviously to PAC than it is to Toronto Preservation Board.
Thanks, Jeff.
I'm not sure if that was a question or a comment, but
It was a comment, but we...
It was a comment.
It was a comment.
I would want to just correct that it was in tandem with an Heritage Conservation District study, so not exclusively the planning study. The two both, in fact, it was the district study that made the in-depth analysis of sites specifically.
Thank you very much. Other questions? Further discussion? Seeing none, I have a staff report with recommendations before us. Would anybody care to move the recommendations in the report? Peter, all those in favor? Thank you very much. Motion carries. Moving on.
Madam Chair.
Hi, Adam. Sorry.
I just want to confirm that the clerk received the correspondence regarding the previous item on Sussex Avenue.
I'm gonna continue moving on. Have you submitted your mission, your motion?
I just want to confirm it was received at City Hall with the clerk, sir.
Yeah, they did. It's all, we're gonna just sort of keep
Wonderful.
motoring
Thank you.
along. Moving on to PB 26.484 Maitland Street inclusion on the Heritage Register. And Gary, you didn't have to go anywhere. Welcome back.
I'm going to be Gary's voice for this one. So good morning, everyone. My name is Lindsay Parsons, and I'm an assistant heritage planner in heritage planning with the Toronto Heritage Survey team. I'm pleased to present this report today and would like to recognize the support of Claire Forward and Gary Miedema. This report recommends 84 Maitland Street for inclusion on the Heritage Register as a listed property. Next slide, thank you. The subject property is located on the north side of Maitland Street between Church Street and Jarvis Street in the Church and Wellesley neighborhood. Staff have undertaken research and evaluation for the property at 84 Maitland Street, including entrance address 82 Maitland Street, and believe that the property is cultural heritage value or interest and meet at least one of the criteria prescribed in Ontario Regulation 906 for inclusion of a non-designated property on a municipal register under Section 27 of the Ontario Heritage Act. The property also was identified as having potential heritage value through the North Downtown Young Urban Design Guidelines. Community interest in the property was expressed through a nomination for heritage evaluation in November 2020 and 4 nominations in November 2022. Next slide. Constructed in 1911, the property at 84 Maitland Street, known as the Royal George Apartments, hold design value as a representative example of an early 20th century apartment building with Edwardian classical detailing. Contextually, the property contributes to a collection of early 20th century brick walk-up apartment buildings on Maitland Street and the surrounding Church Wellesley neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. Do we have any questions of staff on this item? Jeff, you held this one?
No further questions.
Okay. Are there any questions of staff? Adam? Hi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm actually going to out myself as a person who submitted the nomination back in 2020 for this one. I'd like to thank them for proceeding with this. Was any consideration given to interior elements? The lobby and grand staircase of this building is drop-dead stunning Edwardian architecture. If not, at what stage could we expect potential consideration of interior elements?
So listing statements are not exhaustive. A property only needs to meet one of the 9 provincial criteria to merit listing. So listing reports are clear in stating that future research and evaluation may indicate more values, and a full list of attributes is only developed through designation report. So we received your images of the interior. So those would be identified through full evaluation in connection with the designation report.
Thank you, Lindsay. Other questions of staff? Seeing none, is there discussion amongst ourselves? Adam?
I just want to extend the thanks to everyone who has worked on this file over the past few years, for the community members who also submitted their nominations. Also, this is a stunning building. It's part of a land assembly. And just for a fun fact, for anyone who likes political satire talk shows, Gina Christie, one of the very first political satire talk show hosts, lived in this building in the 1960s when she was working for the CBC. So there's some really interesting history there as well. Thank you.
It'll be interesting to see what the designation report might drum up about sort of those historical details and all of the other things. Other discussion amongst ourselves? Seeing none, I have a staff report with recommendations before us. Would anybody like to move the recommendations in the report? Jeff, thank you very much. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We're going to continue motoring along to PB 26.5, 94 Cortleigh Boulevard, alterations to and demolition of heritage attributes of a designated heritage property under sections 33 and 34 of the Ontario Heritage Act. We have a staff presentation for this one. Good morning and welcome. I'll turn the floor over.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. So good morning. My name's Jennifer Guerin, and I'm a heritage planner with the Heritage Planning Unit in the Development Review on the East team. And today I'll be presenting on agenda item PB 26.5, 94 Cortleigh Boulevard, alterations to and demolition of heritage attributes of a designated heritage property under sections 33 and 34 of the Ontario Heritage Act. So the report recommends the approval of alterations to and demolition of heritage attributes proposed to the property in connection with a one-story rear addition. Next slide, please. So the subject site is located in the Lytton Park neighborhood on the north side of Cortleigh Boulevard between Avenue Road and Rosewell Avenue, and it backs onto the Lytton Sunken Gardens Park. Next slide, please. So City Council, at its December 17th and 18th meeting in 2024, adopted the Notice of Intention to Designate of 94 Cortleigh Boulevard under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. The property contains a residence constructed in 1914, inspired by the arts and crafts movement. The two-story house is finished in rustic red brick, stone detailing, and has half-timbered gables. An extended roof slope distinguishes the main facade, which also features a prominent stone porch. The property was commissioned for professional decorator William Weeks and is among the earliest to be developed in this portion of Lytton Park. Next slide, please. So the proposal involves the construction of a one-story addition at the rear of the property and alterations to heritage attributes, including the relocation of some windows and doors, in-kind replacement of historic windows and doors, and the enclosure of the rear integral porch. And shown on this slide is a rendering of the street view of the proposed additions. Next slide, please. So the proposed alteration involves the construction of a new rear yard addition, which would interface with the existing north rear elevation. The addition consists of two one-story splayed wings surrounding a central exterior pool and terrace, with the roof height roughly matching the existing eaves line of the retained house. The alteration involves the demolition of heritage attributes, including the rear porch and its architectural components. The rear integral porch would be enclosed as part of the proposal, including the removal of its ceiling, door, and stone stair wing walls. Additional interior openings are proposed for the rear elevation to connect the existing house with the new addition. Next slide, please. So as part of this proposal, the rear veranda and its architectural elements are proposed to be demolished to accommodate the new rear addition. The rear veranda, although altered from its original form, is identified as a heritage attribute in the Statement of Significance for 94 Cortleigh Boulevard, and its demolition will have a heritage impact given its contribution to the design and physical value of the property. However, staff are of the opinion that the proposed demolition of attributes is mitigated by the overall conservation strategy for the project, which conserves the public-facing heritage attributes of the main building. The conservation strategy involves the repair and restoration of the slate roof, shown here in blue. The restoration includes spot replacement of copper flashing where required. General maintenance will be undertaken as part of the proposal and includes repair and repainting of wooden elements and masonry cleaning and repair as required. Next slide, please. So this slide shows a more detailed strategy for the door and window openings, including which will be conserved, which will be replaced in kind, which will be moved. So the strategy includes the restoration of wood sash windows on the front elevation, the front oak door, and its associated side lights. So all of the front facade openings will be restored, and the only exceptions are the basement windows and the two relocated windows on the left-hand side of the entryway to reflect the interior reconfiguration, these will be replaced in kind. Wood sash windows on the east side and north elevations will also be restored. Other windows will be replaced in kind as shown in the diagram and will match the originals in design, material, width, and profile to the satisfaction of the Senior Manager of Heritage Planning and in accordance with the Parks Canada standards and guidelines for the conservation of historic places in Canada. Staff recommends the approval of the alterations and demolition of attributes at 94 Cortleigh Boulevard in connection with the new rear addition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions of staff? Just waiting for all of the lovely online people to pop back up. Or not, as the case may be. Adam, you held this item. Do you have a question for staff on this one?
No, I appreciate the clarification from the report. My question was answered during that. Thank you.
Okay. So seeing no questions of staff, is there discussion amongst ourselves? Yes, Alex.
Yes, it's more of a point that I think I made last time. This is a success story, and it highlights the importance of getting something listed when it comes on the market. And there was a problem actually because there was the usual sort of kickback from the owners that, our property value will be much diminished, et cetera, et cetera. Fortunately, council did go ahead with the listing. And now with the designation, I think it's a happy story with a very interesting addition and renovation. And I think from the street, the house will look just fantastic. And overall, I think it's an example which I think should be followed more often by people in Lytton Park and in parts of the city where they have a beautiful property and the boogeyman of property devaluation is waved around. But in spite of that, I think it's worked out very well. ERA and the owner are to be congratulated. Thanks.
Thank you, Alex. Other discussion amongst ourselves? Seeing none, I have a staff report with recommendations before us. Would anybody like to move the recommendations in that report? Alex, thank you very much. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on to PB 26.6, 522 University Avenue, alterations to and demolition of heritage attributes at a designated property under sections 33 and 34 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and authority to enter into a heritage easement agreement. We have a staff presentation. Do my fellow members care to hear the presentation? Yes? And Erin's making her way to the floor.
Can you hear me now? Great, thank you. Good morning, members of the board. My name is Erin Smith. I'm a senior heritage planner with our development review team. Here presenting item PB 26.6 regarding the designated heritage property at 522 University Avenue, alterations to and demolition of heritage attributes under section 33 and 34 of the Ontario Heritage Act, as well as authority to enter into a heritage easement agreement in conjunction with a development proposal for the site. Next slide, please. The subject site is located at the southwest corner of University Avenue and Elm Street, and it is bound by Elm Street to the north, Simcoe Street to its west, and University Avenue to the east. You can see here that the Heritage Building takes up the entire property parcel. Next slide, please. This slide shows views of the property, which is highly visible from the intersection of University Avenue and Elm Street, which is shown on the left-hand image, and on the right hand is its other prominent elevations along Elm Street and Simcoe. The building is known as the National Life Building. It's a 15-story concrete office building that was constructed for the National Life Insurance Company of Canada between 1971 and 1974 to the design of John C. Parkin, and it's a fine example of monumental modernist architecture utilizing precast concrete in Toronto. It was designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act last year. Next slide, please. This slide has been included to show a close-up image of the property's granite ground floor plane, which is a heritage attribute, along with the recessed cantilevered glass second story and its coffered ceiling. The right-hand image shows the interior heritage attributes of the property, which includes the presence of a double-height lobby volume along University Avenue, which features mirrors that highlight the continuation of the coffered ceilings throughout the interior and creates the perception of an extension of space. Next slide, please. This slide shows a summary of the proposed approach for the building. The original rezoning application proposed to demolish the National Life Building in its entirety and to replace it with a new building. However, since its designation, the applicant worked with heritage planning, and urban design staff to propose a conservation strategy for the building, with the construction of a 49-story residential tower above and commercial and retail uses within the heritage building. The left-hand image on this slide shows the red portions which are proposed to be demolished. This is the southern bay of the building. It will be demolished for the new construction, and then its east and west elevations, along with one bay returns of the south elevation, will be reconstructed. The new building and the tower above will be tied to the original building shown on the right. So 2/3 of the original building, including its interior floor plates and core, will all be retained in situ. The glazed curtain wall system that's seen at the first and second stories of the Heritage Building will also be demolished for the new construction, but will be reconstructed with a higher performance curtain wall system that matches the proportions, finish, and appearance of the original. Next slide, please. The slide shows the proposed site plan. You can see the new tower and new construction shown in dark gray, which is limited to the southern portion of the building, and a very deep step back of 28.8 meters from Elm Street. Next slide, please. This slide shows the proposed ground floor plane with its proposed alterations, which are meant to align with the original design intent, including the reinstatement of planters and improved seating and gathering spaces, as well as the removal of some unsympathetic alterations that have occurred over time, including improving the barrier-free access by relocating the existing ramp to the north elevation. You can see the interior attribute of the double height lobby volume is highlighted here in blue, and it will be maintained, and new mirrored walls will be reinstated along with the interior coffered ceiling panels. Many of these have already been replaced by drywall over time, and so they will be reinstated, and where existing will be repaired. If they're unable to be reinstated or repaired, then they're proposed to be replaced with a complementary recessed coffer that reflects that original design intent. Next slide, please. The slide shows the east elevation along University Avenue and the proposed north elevation along Elm Street. You can see the tower that's stepped back above, and a recessed two-story amenity floor, which acts as a reveal directly above the Heritage Building and connects to the podium addition, which creates a glazed backdrop to frame the Heritage Building. Next slide, please. This slide shows the proposed west elevation along Simcoe and the proposed south elevation, showing the one-window returns that are visible. And the red line here is showing that cut line where the new construction will meet with the existing building fabric. Next slide, please. These are some selected renderings of the proposal. The design of the reconstructed portion of the Heritage Building was carefully considered to make sure that the heritage values and attributes would continue to be conveyed within the reconstruction. Due to their original construction method, the existing precast concrete cladding units were not found to be able to be salvaged and reused, and instead the reconstructed portion of the building and its two ground floor columns are proposed to be clad in limestone. The use of limestone is proposed to allow for a visually compatible yet subtle distinction between the new material and the existing original concrete building fabric. The uniform arrangement of fenestration, along with the symmetry and proportions of the existing window openings, which are such character-defining features of this building, along the east, west, and south returns, will all be replicated. And new window units throughout the building are proposed to be insulated glass units that will match the profile, depth, and tint of the existing. The tower portion has been designed with a simple grid pattern shown in the right-hand rendering that attempts to draw reference to the uniformity and the proportions of the Heritage Building below. Next slide, please. This last slide shows a rendering just with a closer view of the rehabilitated ground floor plane as it would be viewed from University Avenue and Elm Street. Staff are recommending approval of the proposed demolitions and alterations under Section 33 and 34 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one speaker on this item, Brendan McCabe, the project manager at ERA. Welcome, Brendan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. I don't have anything prepared today. I'm just here should the board have any questions on behalf of the applicant and the consultant team for this project.
Marvelous. Thank you very much. So do we have questions for our speaker? Seeing none. We're going to move on to questions of staff. Thank you very much, Brendan.
Thank you.
Questions of staff? Seeing none, is there discussion amongst ourselves? Oh, hi, Alex.
Yes, I wonder if staff is aware that, at least according to my information, as of a couple of weeks ago, the property has been bought by University Health Network, and I believe the current building is going to be redeveloped into a building for their purposes. So I assume that the large tower is now off the books for at least the present.
Thank you. Through the chair, I don't have any updated information regarding that. However, I do know that the application is proceeding to Community Council.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Any discussion amongst ourselves? Seeing none, I have a staff report with recommendations before us. Who would like to move the recommendations? I will this time. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to PB 26.7, 508 and 510 Church Street, alterations to heritage properties and authority to amend a heritage easement agreement. Just as a note, so we will take a recorded vote on this one because Adam has declared a conflict. Adam, I don't see you on video right now, so that's exactly as it should be. Just sort of stay off. Thank you. And we will invite the staff report on this item. Welcome, Kristen.
Hello, I'm Kristen Flood. I'm a senior heritage planner with Heritage Planning's Development Review Team on the East. This report seeks authority for alterations to a Part 4 designated heritage property and to amend an existing heritage easement agreement at 508 and 510 Church Street. slide, please. The development site at 506 to 516 Church is located in the center of the Church and Wellesley neighborhood, also known as the Village. It is located on the west side of Church Street between Alexander and Maitland Streets. The properties contribute to an eclectic streetscape that is characterized by a variety of commercial typologies in 19th century residential buildings that have been converted to commercial use. For over 4 decades, Church and Wellesley has been the heart of Toronto's 2S LGBTQ+ community. There is a concentration of queer community spaces, clubs, bars, and restaurants, including Cruise and Tangos. Next slide, please. The Part 4 designated properties at 508 and 510 Church contain 2 adjoining structures originally constructed as part of a row of 6 residences in 1856 to 58, with a 19th century coach house to the rear. The primary structure is a unique example of semi-detached house-form buildings from the mid-19th century, which have evolved for commercial use. They are notable for their asymmetrical configuration and details that demonstrate the influence of the Romanesque Revival style. The buildings were identified as wood structures in the 1889 and 1903 Godes Atlases, and as brick by 1913, suggesting alterations may have taken place. Since 1994, the properties have been the home of Cruise, later Cruise and Tangos, a storied venue for drag performances and queer gatherings. The properties are a cultural landmark within the Church and Wellesley Village and for Toronto's broader queer community. The mural added in 2013 for World Pride contributes to the building status as a visual landmark. Next slide, please. The subject development application proposes a 48-story mixed-use building, the retention of a portion of the existing Cruise and Tangos building, which is shown on the site plan in darker gray, the demolition of the coach house to the rear. A previous development application for a 14-story building with a similar conservation strategy was approved by City Council in July 2022. The existing World Pride mural will be removed to allow for masonry restoration, and it will be commemorated through documentation and 2 new murals. The proposed demolition of the existing coach house will have a heritage impact, and this impact will be mitigated through building documentation and commemoration. While uses and specific tenants cannot be conserved under the Ontario Heritage Act, the developer is exploring opportunities to accommodate Cruise and Tangos or another nightlife venue on site. Other uses and programming that support the queer community are also being explored in consultation with local stakeholders. Next slide, please. A substantial portion of the Cruise and Tangos building is proposed to be retained in situ, including the primary elevation and approximately 1.5 meters of the south and north returns. Additionally, approximately 3.8 meters of the south elevation will be reconstructed with salvaged masonry and new brick to match the existing, and 5.5 meters of the north elevation will be reconstructed with new non-combustible materials and in-kind brick. The remainder of the building fabric will be removed and replaced with new construction. Next slide, please. Since the previous approval in 2022, the proposed building has increased in height from 14 to 48 stories, and the tower stepback has been reduced from 15.77 meters to 6.5 meters. Balconies are proposed to encroach 1.8 meters into this tower stepback. However, there is a reveal about the heritage building where there are no balconies. Although staff acknowledge that the reduction in the tower stepback combined with the increase in height has a heritage impact, staff are of the opinion that the heritage impacts of the proposal will be satisfactorily mitigated through the overall conservation strategy. Next slide, please. The retained portion of the building will be restored with minor alterations to facilitate its adaptive reuse. The historic stained glass windows will be restored and reinstated, and the existing clear windows will be replaced with new windows that closely match the originals. The existing entry doors, transoms, and surrounds are proposed to be replaced with new wood doors that match the historic profiles. A new contemporary and legible door opening is proposed on the south side elevation at the ground floor. The masonry and stone will be cleaned, repaired, and replaced where necessary. Further alterations to the ground floor door and window openings are proposed to make the retail space universally accessible. The proposal reinstates the missing street wall to the north of the Heritage Building, and the new base is set back from the Heritage Building, giving it prominence. Staff appreciates the revisions to the proposed street wall compared to the previously approved proposal. The glazed reveal to the north of the Heritage Building provides a simple contemporary transition. Further north, the red brick two-story volume with bays and rounded arched openings is compatible with the heritage property. The proposed horizontal and vertical articulation creates a regular rhythm of bays that relates to the fine-grained character of the village. Staff recommend approval of the proposed alterations in the context of the proposed conservation and mitigation strategies, and are of the opinion that the proposal is consistent with the policy framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have two speakers on this item. The first is Emily Collins.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. You have
Thank
5
you,
minutes.
Great. I should be quite quick. Thank you, Kristen, for the presentation. I think it really covered off everything. I guess just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Emily Collins. I'm a senior project manager at ERA, the Heritage Consultants for the project. I'm also joined here today with Jordan Kemp from Greywood Group, who's an owner of the site. ERA has been involved with the site since the previous application and its approvals. We do think that the application before you today is an improved one. The rehabilitation and conservation scope for the heritage fabric does remain consistent with the previous approvals. However, the new construction abutting the retained fabric has changed. Specifically, as Kristen mentioned, there's been a reduction in street wall height to 2 stories and increased setbacks on Church Street, which provide for enhanced conditions and visibility of the heritage building along Church Street. We are really looking forward to the opportunity to continue working with staff on this project as it moves forward. Thank you for having us, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Jordan, you also have 5 minutes. Are you just good for questions?
That's exactly right, Madam Chair. Just here for any to answer any questions.
Marvelous. Do we have any questions for our speakers? Seeing none, thank you very much for joining us today. Do we have any questions for staff? Seeing none, is there discussion amongst ourselves? Seeing none, I have a staff report with recommendations before us. Would anybody like to move the recommendations in the report? Kurosh, thank you very much. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. I think we're still working on PB.2. So we're going to move on to PB.
Did we need to do a recorded vote for that because Adam?
Thank you, Matthew. Oh, I knew it. I knew I was too fast. We need to do a recorded vote. So if you could raise your hands if you're in favor, I will say your name. And does that work for you? Perfect. Paul, Mitchell, Peter, Karash, Jeff, Katerina, Alex, Matthew, Julia. That's everybody. Motion carries. Thank you, Matthew. I'll get the hang of all of these screens, newfangled technologies one of these days. Anyway, moving on to PB 26.8, designation of the Kensington Market Heritage Conservation District under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act. And we have a team act today because it takes a village to do an HCD plan like this. So I'll turn it over to staff.
Technically still morning, barely. But good morning, members of the board. My name is Megan Albinger, and I'm a heritage planner with the Heritage Planning Policy and Research Team, and I'll be presenting this item, PB 26.8, designation of the Kensington Market Heritage Conservation District Plan under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act with my colleagues Tatum Taylor-Chobble and Patrick Brown. In the interest of time, we'll only be touching on some of the key aspects of the HCD plan, but we encourage everyone to review both volumes 1 and 2 of the full document, which is appended as attachments 5 and 6 to the report. Next slide, please. If you're not already familiar with Kensington Market, the district is located in the heart of downtown Toronto, between College Street to the north, Dundas Street West to the south, Bathurst Street to the west, and Spadina Avenue to the east. It excludes Toronto Western Hospital and the associated parking garage on Leonard Avenue, and properties fronting onto the 4 boundary streets. The district extends beyond its mixed-use core to include the predominantly residential streets and properties surrounding the commercial market area. Next slide. The district contains the Kensington Market National Historic Site of Canada, designated by the Historic Sites and Monuments Board in 2006. It is a vibrant, mixed-use neighborhood with a unique identity and sense of place. The neighborhood is a microcosm of Canada's diverse immigrant population, where many different ethnocultural communities have each added to the area's layers of built form, maintained a dynamic market, and contributed to a vibrant street life. Its network of narrow streets and laneways, fronted by closely built rows of narrow houses, many of which have been converted to commercial use by the addition of ground floor shops, small-scale purpose-built stores, and cultural institutions such as the Kiever and Enshe synagogues collectively create a distinctive urban district. Both the National Historic Site designation and the proposed Heritage Conservation District Plan emphasize the important relationship between the residential, institutional, and commercial buildings that create a complete community. The public realm and built environment of the district are a staging ground for the activities and uses that also contribute to the neighborhood's character and intangible heritage, including its sense of anarchy, inclusivity, and a history of experimentation. Next slide.
In March 2015, the Kensington Market HCD study was prioritized by City Council, and the completed Kensington Market HCD study was endorsed by the Toronto Preservation Board in September of 2017. Between 2019 and 2024, City staff advanced the development of the draft Kensington Market HCD plan. This work included the reconvening of community meetings following a suspension of consultation activities due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the implementation of a strategy for engagement with urban Indigenous communities. Next slide, please. 2 community consultation meetings were held for the HCD study phase, and a community advisory group, or CAG, comprising a cross-section of stakeholders, was convened in 2016. During the plan phase, the same CAG was consulted to review portions of the draft plan. Individual community stakeholders were also consulted throughout the project. The extensive community engagement was critical to establishing a conservation approach to this HCD that recognized and responded to the district's social values. As part of the plan phase, staff retained an Indigenous facilitator to engage with local urban Indigenous community members. 5 joint sessions gathered input on the cultural heritage values of the Kensington Market and West Queen West HCDs, as well as on policy development. 2 community consultation meetings were held during the HCD plan phase, most recently in November of 2024. Bloor Consulting acted as an external consultant at all CAG and community engagement meetings. Materials and summaries from these meetings, along with frequently asked questions, translated into several languages, were posted on the project's website. Next slide, please. An HCD provides place-based policies and guidelines to conserve and enhance the district, while pointing to opportunities for contextually appropriate growth and change. Section 41.1 of the Ontario Heritage Act outlines the requirements for an HCD plan, which are listed on this slide. In addition, at least 25% of the properties within a proposed HCD must meet 2 or more of the 9 criteria for determining cultural heritage value or interest. The Kensington Market HCD study process and the HCD plan have been prepared in accordance with provincial legislation and the city's terms of reference for HCDs. Next slide, please.
Section 3 of the plan provides a detailed description of the district's cultural heritage values. The district is part of the ancestral lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. It also holds historic and associative value for its reflection of the contributions of various immigrant communities. Between the 1910s and 1930s, the area emerged as a Jewish market, followed by the arrival of groups such as Portuguese and Hungarian immigrants at mid-century,
Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, and other Southeast Asian communities beginning in the 1960s, and Latin American, African, and Jamaican communities in the 1970s to 1990s. The visible layering of building additions, particularly within the market area, represents the adaptation that occurred as these groups established homes and businesses in the district. Kensington Market also holds physical value as a unique concentration of modified house form buildings within a unique block pattern. The area's contextual value relates to its distinct built form and character as a complete community that sustains its own residential, commercial, and institutional activities. Finally, it holds social and community value as a place that has cultivated an identity defined by innovation, public art, and social activism. Next slide, please. One character sub-area has been identified in response to the distinct pattern of built form and public realm characteristics found in the district's core market area. This character sub-area helps illustrate the area's historic evolution and development. Delineating a character sub-area within an HCD allows for the identification of additional heritage attributes that are particularly or uniquely associated with the character sub-area, as well as the opportunity to create policies and guidelines that apply only to properties within that area. In the Kensington Market HCD plan, policies that are specific to the market character sub-area relate primarily to conserving and enhancing its public realm characteristics. Next slide. Section 3 of the plan also includes a list of heritage attributes that define the district. Some key examples to include the concentration of house form buildings that represent the district's early residential development from the 1850s to the early 1900s. The district also has contributing properties that represent its origins as a working class residential enclave, including workers' cottages along laneways. Within the district, a range of building and landscape typologies create a complete community, and social services and public art represent the community's high degree of involvement in local matters. Next slide. The market character sub-area, as previously mentioned, features a concentration of house form buildings with visible layering, which reflects the modifications made over time to address new community needs. The character sub-area also includes the district's purpose-built commercial buildings, which date to the emergence of the commercial market in the early 20th century. Collectively, the narrow storefronts, public realm patterns, and public art within the character sub-area define the animated pedestrian experience of the market.
Next slide. Section 4 of the HCD plan includes objectives that outline what the plan aims to achieve with Part 5 designation. These objectives reflect both the current character of the district and how the plan envisions future management. Relating directly to the attributes, the range of objectives includes finding opportunities to represent Indigenous heritage, conserving the pattern of small storefronts and narrow lot frontages in the market, supporting ongoing evolution of the district's built fabric through incremental change, and enhancing social and community values. Next slide, please. The identification of property typologies in Section 5 provides a categorization system for understanding patterns of use and development within the district. The property typologies identified in the HCD plan include house form buildings, converted house form buildings, meaning those which have been adaptively reused or converted to commercial use, primarily through ground floor alterations, multi-residential buildings, purpose-built commercial buildings, institutional buildings, and parks and open spaces. Next slide, please. Another way that the HCD plan analyzes properties within the district is by identifying contributing and non-contributing properties. All properties within the HCD are designated under the Ontario Heritage Act, but contributing properties are those that support the identified significant cultural heritage value, heritage attributes, and integrity of the district. Within the HCD plan, different policies and guidelines apply to a property depending on whether it is contributing or non-contributing. 58% of the 704 properties within the Kensington Market Heritage Conservation District meet 2 or more of the 9 criteria for determining cultural heritage value or interest. Next slide, please.
Section 6 of the plan lays out policies and guidelines for contributing properties within the district that will conserve the district's cultural heritage value and attributes. This includes conserving the legibility of the district's early period of development and the patterns of building expansion that have made the market what it is today. The policies apply to exterior portions of a property that are visible from the public realm and not building interiors. Key policies and guidelines are illustrated to provide a visualization of how they may be interpreted. Some policies, such as those for new massing and additions, are unique to each building typology. For example, where zoning permits commercial use, front additions to house form typology buildings on contributing properties to accommodate commercial activity may be permitted. In such cases, the plan permits the removal of entrance and porch features, even those that date to the original construction of the building, in order to support and facilitate the ongoing evolution of the district and vibrancy of the market. Similarly, additions to converted house form and commercial typology buildings are also permitted with caveats, such as conserving the legibility of the property's architectural style, and in the case of converted house forms, its roof type, although no numerical stepbacks are prescribed. Next slide, please. Policies for other types of alterations also emphasize conservation of the legibility of a contributing property's architectural style and typology. This legibility may relate to composition, materials, size, finishes, patterns, and detailing of exterior walls, windows, and roofs. The plan strongly encourages the repair of existing building features and details, but where these are to be replaced, the plan does not require replacements to be of in-kind materials, and this acknowledges the incremental change and adaptations that property owners have made over time, either to address lower quality building materials used in the working class housing or to express individual aesthetic preferences. Where these alterations have been made to contributing properties, they retain the legibility of their original character, and the plan's policies will continue to permit these types of alterations. These policies also support a wide variety of alterations to facilitate accessibility and sustainable building practices, which were identified as strong community values throughout the public consultations held. The HCD plan also supports property owners who are interested in undertaking restoration work on their buildings, making them eligible to apply for the city's heritage incentive programs through their identification as a contributing property.
Next slide. Section 7 of the plan lays out policies and guidelines for non-contributing properties within the district, which apply to alterations to non-contributing properties, as well as new infill development. These policies direct new development to complement the district's scale, massing, and visibly layered built form by creating facades that have variations in depth, materiality, or detailing, while being generally consistent with the front yard setback condition of the district's contributing properties. Next slide, please. Policies and guidelines regarding street wall composition and storefronts support the plan's objective to conserve the pattern of small storefronts and narrow lot frontages, which help facilitate the traditional food-based market uses and other small businesses that contribute to the district's eclectic character. For example, the plan calls for new development to have visually separated storefronts of less than 9 meters wide and generally no higher than 1 story, as expressed on the building's exterior. Next slide, please. The HCD plan also includes a section of policies and guidelines for the public realm. The guidelines within this section of the plan are not overly prescriptive, allowing for creativity in their interpretation and application to ensure the district continues to foster a range of dynamic cultural expression. Within the market character sub-area, policies for public realm enhancements are intended to complement and reinforce existing patterns of commercial use and the role of Augusta Avenue as a spine for cultural events. Policies and guidelines acknowledge the role of soft landscaping in the public realm as a reflection of the area's residential origins, and opportunities for placemaking, placekeeping, public art, and cultural expression are encouraged. Next, please.
The HCD plan describes the heritage permit process and identifies alterations that are considered minor in nature and may be carried out without applying for a heritage permit. Examples of such deemed approvals that are specific to the Kensington Market HCD include all commercial signage and certain encroachments into the public realm that have been approved by Transportation Services under Chapter 743 of the Municipal Code. In Volume 2 of the HCD plan, additional appendices include reference lists of all contributing and non-contributing properties within the district. The appendices also include a detailed statement of contribution for each property or group of properties that has been identified as contributing to the district, an example of which is shown at the right. Next slide, please.
Heritage planning staff are of the opinion that the Kensington Market HCD plan meets the requirements of the Ontario Heritage Act. Heritage planning staff therefore recommend the designation of the Kensington Market HCD under Part 5 of the Act. In conclusion, we wish to extend our sincere thanks to our city colleagues who have contributed to this plan, especially Larissa Calogero, Emma Dodens, and Aaron Smith. Above all, we thank the community members who have given their time and input to the HCD process, and in particular to the members of the CAG, whose commitment to Kensington Market over the years has enabled us to complete this HCD plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much to staff. What a fantastic report and a tremendous amount of work that clearly was put into this. We have one speaker on this item, but before we turn to the speaker, just a procedural moment. We're going to do a motion to extend the agenda, a motion to extend the meeting to the end of the agenda. I'm sure that everybody would like to stretch their legs, but we have the finishing this item and one more. I think let's just get this done. I think we can do it. I believe in us. So I'm going to turn to clerks to put up the motion that the Toronto Preservation Board extend the meeting past the scheduled 12:30 lunch recess to complete the agenda. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And now I will turn to our speaker, Alan Zimmerman, representing 239-241 Augusta Avenue. Welcome. You have 5 minutes.
If you could grant me a share as presenter, that'd be appreciated. Before you start the clock. Okay, I now have presented. Okay. Okay, so I'm Alan Zimmerman. My family, my parents and extended family have owned some of the large properties at the core of Kensington Market and several smaller properties for my entire life and longer. I'm taking. I have some concerns about a couple things in the policies, and they're specifically for larger properties. So I'm going to be speaking to 239 and 241 Augusta, but there are other family properties that are large as well. Looking back at Gode's Atlas in 1884, I highlighted the property and shows that it is spanning 2 municipal addresses, and it is contained within the district. And I also note that in the report in section 5.5, it's acknowledged that the buildings within the district are diverse in character, size, and age. And even in the Victorian area that we're trying to preserve that heritage, there are larger properties that span multiple lots. So the property I'm speaking to from 1912 to 1955 was the building on the left, and it was the Beth Leda Synagogue. From 1959 to 2016, there were multiple grocery and clothing stores, mostly run by my family. At that time, they determined that grocery was no longer viable, and it was vacant for over 3 years due to delivery and parking challenges. An event venue wanted to take it over, but then they determined it wasn't viable because of some of the liquor license restrictions. But a cannabis store has been a tenant since 2019, and I am concerned about their continued viability because it is a very large store that normally is not required for a cannabis location. And I'm concerned that the HCD policies would impact redevelopment that might be necessary in order to attract future tenants, and there's a risk of future vacancies like we've had for 3+ years. Specifically, Section 7.6.3, and it talks about storefronts being less than 9 meters and no higher than 1 story. And fundamentally, number one, if we redevelop, I would like acknowledgement that we can, our current configuration, which is a 13.13 meter wide store, could be allowed to continue, because splitting it into 2 stores, and by the time you put in staircases going up and down an access corridor, you get very, very narrow, deep stores. And that would be 5.2 times deeper than the frontage, and that's not operationally viable for most businesses. But I do understand that the storefront widths should be visibly complementary to adjacent properties, and either that should be allowed, or at least the existing features should be allowed to continue in the event of redevelopment. This picture shows you that, and our properties, the current properties on the left, with the Fairland sign, it shows you that already that all those properties are different heights. The elevations are different. It is not an eyesore because canopies or signage help bridge the heights. So, for example, the property to the right of us, if you'll see, the roof line is in the middle of the 2nd story of the corner property. But the bottom, the top of the canopy does align with the other canopy. So, I mean, there's lots of ways to achieve, visibly complementary configuration without mandating that the elevations are identical for across the properties. And frankly, large properties would need that. You need higher ceilings in order for it not to be claustrophobic. Here's another property, 160 Baldwin, which is a tall building compared to 168 and 170. And again, you'll see that there is a difference in the heights, and I'm highlighting that with the red arrows, where the 2nd floor windows aren't at the same height, but the signage above is bridging some of that difference, so it doesn't look out of place.
Mr. Zimmerman, your time is up, unfortunately.
Yeah, we lost a little bit of time just from from getting the presenter, but I understand. Anyway, I will submit this to the Heritage team.
Perfect.
And I would ask them to consider the amendments that I'm proposing.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time today. Do we have any questions of our speaker?
Madam Chair, this is Adam Wynn. I do have a question. I'm not sure if you could see me with the presentation still up.
Not quite, but I'm glad you chimed in, Adam. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Zimmerman, for your presentation. I'm wondering if you could speak a bit more around the concern of width versus depth with storefront viability in Kensington markets. My understanding, a fair number of the storefronts are quite narrow, but extend deep into the lots, especially those typologies in the older houses that have been converted over.
I've looked at most of those narrow properties, and many of them are not quite as deep as we are. So there is a difference. Okay. And at some point, so there are ones that would be as narrow as what we would have to do if we split it, but they aren't as deep.
Thank you. Other questions of our speaker? Seeing none, Mr. Zimmerman, thank you again for your time today and for your presentation to the board. Do we have any questions of staff? Jeff.
I just noticed
we cannot hear Jeff.
Can you put on your microphone?
Oh. My apologies, yes. Mostly the presentation talked about additions and alterations. I'm just wondering, are there policies about demolitions? The word demolition was not mentioned.
I assume that question is directed at staff.
Sorry, through the chair. Within the HCD plan, demolition would not be supported for contributing properties. It would be permissible for non-contributing properties.
Thank you very much. Are there questions of staff? Adam?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually have a few different questions. I will go through them one at a time.
Thank you very much. And I'm
Okay.
going to pause after each question just to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
It's my understanding Spadina Avenue, Dundas Street West, College Street, and Bathurst Street were originally part of the Kensington Market HCD. They were later phased out. I'm wondering if staff could speak to the decision to remove those 4 boundary streets from the study. I'm particularly concerned around Bathurst and Spadina, as there's a fair number of buildings with potential heritage value along those stretches. So why were they removed from the study?
Sure. Through the chair, as you pointed out, Adam, the boundary streets were originally part of the HCD study area. Through staff's research and analysis during the HCD plan phase, those major boundary streets were removed from the boundary of the HCD plan based on our refinement of our understanding of the cultural heritage value and heritage attributes of the HCD. If we are speaking specifically, I believe you mentioned Spadina and Dundas, Adam?
Spadina and Bathurst?
Spadina and Bathurst.
Although certainly Dundas as well maintains that fine grain retail that we see in the market.
Sure. So on Bathurst Street, we found that the properties on the east side of Bathurst are part of a very highly evolved streetscape along Bathurst Street, and the properties no longer are experienced as part of the interior of the market area. On Spadina, we found that the built form character along the west side of Spadina is very consistent with 2 to 3 story purpose-built commercial and mixed-use buildings with consistent material palettes, and they really don't demonstrate any of the visible layering or patterns of adaptation that we identified as being defining characteristics of the commercial market area within Kensington Market.
Thank you very much. Other questions of staff? Adam?
Thank you for that clarification. Did you speak to any of the long-term stakeholders in Kensington Market around the Spadina Avenue elements? My understanding that section of Spadina Avenue on the west side is viewed as part of the market, has been viewed as part of the market, especially within the cultural considerations. I was speaking to long-term stakeholders who have grown up in the market, and they've been there over 60 years, and they all view that section of Spadina Avenue as intrinsically part of Kensington Market.
We did speak to a number of community stakeholders throughout the process of developing the HCD plan. We also spoke to representatives of Chinatown, understanding that the boundary between Kensington Market and Chinatown is quite porous. Spadina Avenue is being considered as part of the Chinatown planning study by the city. And I think it's also important to acknowledge that Kensington Market as an HCD includes policies and guidelines that are developed based on the characteristics, the key heritage attributes that we identified, rather than kind of making an overall statement about who is and isn't within Kensington Market. It's specific to the built form patterns.
Thank you very much. Other questions? Adam?
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that clarification. I note that the 2S LGBTQ history of Kensington Market was omitted from the report and the study. One of my panel members, Ed Jackson, has been a founding member of the body politic and was involved with Glad Day Books from the 1970s onwards. He flagged this concern at the recent meeting. Glad Day Books, the body politic, Kensington Arts were all at 4 Kensington Avenue in the 1970s. There was a body politic group house at 27 Oxford in the 1980s. And there's been contemporary 2S LGBTQ businesses such as Video Fag at 187 Augusta Avenue in the early to mid 2010s. I'm just wondering if any consideration was given to the 2S LGBTQ history, and if so, why was it omitted? And if not, can we include it in the study?
I'll let Tamara speak to that through the chair.
Again, it's Tamara Cartwright, Program Manager for Heritage Policy and Research. Thank you for the good question through the chair. One of the things with the heritage conservation districts is that the terms of reference for us includes social and community values. Those are things that are actually not under the provincial criteria Reg 906. And when I'm hearing the project team identifying what are the strong community values, my response is that there are many interesting historical information that we hear about sites throughout a district study. What really I think is important for us is to sort of sift and decide or determine whether those are representative or really reflect the full understanding of the cultural heritage value. And we certainly saw that ourselves with West Queen West of having the importance of LGBTQ, similarly for Cabbagetown. Certainly we could always supplement or document history of diversity and inclusion, and if there's an opportunity we could see. I would say this information is now coming very late to us. I would just to say that this social and community value is something that we take very close to our work, and we are, as in you've heard also from today, the Indigenous community and engagements piece that we've really been trying to deal with. And I would just say that I think we could be more intentional, but I would say the historical fact of a store being there, as much as it was important to clients and customers, we just weren't able to relate it to the overall district value itself. So we always appreciate new information or information that is relevant, but I would say on balance, the story that we are telling in this and identified as what's of cultural value is what we would do. We also can sometimes look to how do the values get reflected individually, not individually, as noted as a collection of buildings. But in this case, in this circumstance, we didn't identify associated value for any of the individual buildings, with exceptions, as I understand it, of the institutions, like the place of worship, the synagogue, a shul, St. Stephen's, for its incredible work that it's done for the community. So I guess I'm sort of saying an overall observation of social and community values is an evolving practice for ourselves. And there isn't really that guidance from the province on the criteria to the same extent. And we're just going to continue to improve that. And I understand and appreciate the panel continues to express that information to us or share that information. And we hope we can continue to use it throughout our research on any of our districts. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. Other questions? Adam?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Tamara and Tatum, for your clarification. I have three more very brief questions. I thank you for that clarification around the social and cultural history. I note in the report that the term alternative cultural expression is used. Is there an opportunity to perhaps expand that to include the 2S LGBTQ history, as well as history such as the punk scene, which is distinct from what is generally termed alternative? This is a history going back 50 years at this point. It's not just recent stuff.
I would say at this point, we're just take it under advisement right now. We're just absorbing these things. It's really challenging for us to get these questions when the thing had been, our material's been published, we've had open houses. I mean, I don't want to discount any new information or observations from the board. They're highly valued, but it's really hard for us to instantaneously respond yes or no. If you could more to say, we'll take it under advisement and have a thoughtful review.
Okay.
Quick question number 2.
Okay, thank you. And I do want to note in some cases, these were sent in by email over the past 7 years. And I understand with the pandemic, some things got lost, and I'm not trying to blindside people. I would appreciate if any clarification could be given on the Indigenous consultation process, especially the push to rename Russell Creek and any potential forthcoming Indigenous elements of the study. or as they exist in the current form? Thank you.
So yeah, Heritage Planning has developed relationships with our treaty and territorial partners. And in accordance with our commitment to reconciliation, all treaty and territorial partners were provided with an opportunity to express interest in the study area and become involved with the project. We also sought to connect with urban Indigenous community members through a series of in-person engagement sessions facilitated by an Indigenous consultant, Innovation 7. We've held 5 in-person sessions with them over a period of several months, returning to the same group of people and reaching out to different groups of people. And summaries of all these sessions are available online. At the sessions, we collected feedback about the district, about the values that they saw in the district, and presented draft language to participants to comment on. Policy 8.2.3 is one particular example of a direct suggestion that was recommended by many participants, which directs users of the plan to find opportunities to increase access to the natural environment within the public realm and honor the natural heritage of the area through the introduction of pocket gardens or other landscape features. With respect to the Russell Creek, at one of our Indigenous engagement sessions, we also talked about the creek with community members. Currently, the city has no plans for physical daylighting of the creek, but cultural daylighting options were one of the topics that was discussed. And we found that it generally fell into the same theme as the community's views on increasing access to natural heritage more generally, which, again, as I mentioned, we captured with policy 8.2.3.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Adam.
Okay, thank you. Over the past few days, thank you, Madam Chair. Over the past few days, the Preservation Panel has received a number of corrections or requests from community members pertaining to site-specific properties. What is the best process of going through sending those corrections in? This could be, for example, the oldest Caribbean business in the market is misidentified in the report. One of the existing businesses has been there longer. Concerns around the omission of the Underground Railroad connection to 219 Augusta Avenue and potential value of 321A Augusta Avenue alongside emails that I've received from community members. Is it best for them to approach the study planners directly, or how would you like these brought to your attention?
Thanks, Adam. Through the chair, I think the best thing to do is that if anybody has noticed anything that they believe needs correction, to send it to the project leads. They would be, given that this is an HCD plan which looks more at the whole than the individual parts, some of them might be necessary to make, other corrections maybe are not so necessary, but they would be considered technical in nature, which after we went to council, we could do something about, but only really if it was something that related to a statement of significance or historic value. We're not going to rewrite the report and make updates, but we can make sure that if there's anything related to policy, that we look at it.
Thank you.
Are there other questions of staff? Seeing none, is there discussion amongst ourselves? Thank you very much. Jeff?
Well, simply to say, I guess to appreciate the work that's been done here, the complexity of dealing with an area that's constantly changing. We talk about how neighborhoods evolve, but there's so much change in that, and so much due to the changing waves of immigration and cultural. I guess in the heritage world, things are being talked about as tangible and intangible. So this is an example, perhaps more than any of the other HCD studies in the city, of trying to absorb, trying to cope, trying to embrace intangible heritage. And it would seem, I'm quite sort of interested in how you've dealt with that in terms of the style of policy. My sense is the policies being raised are somewhat higher level and would actually require some judgment involved to implement the plan. So there may be some challenges in going forward, but it will be interesting to see how that goes and what the reception is over time, and whether the experiment that you're involved in, is able to be implemented effectively and without too many hassles. But thanks again.
Thank you, Jeff, for saying that so eloquently. Are there other discussion points? Adam.
I just want to extend a sincere thanks to all of the staff and community members and other stakeholders who have been, and board members who have been involved in this process over the past almost decade of work. It's really wonderful to see this come to fruition. And I also want to say that our preservation panel is looking at opportunities to become involved with the Chinatown study to get some protection of that Spadina Avenue corridor, especially as it's such a great built resource and gem within the city of Toronto.
Any other discussion points? Seeing none, I have a staff report with recommendations before us. Who would like to move the recommendations in the report? Jeff, thank you very much. All those in favor? Motion carries. We're moving back to PB 26.2. And I think what we'll do is that we're going to move in, we'll have the motion put up on the screen, please and thank you. Perfect. We will discuss this, we'll vote on this, and then we'll have more discussion.
Yep.
That the Toronto Preservation, sorry, yes?
Oh, Madam Chair, if I may add, reference photos have been sent to board members by email referencing the
Thank
interior.
you, Adam. Thank you. Not everybody has their device in front of us, as you know, it's going to be one of those hiccups between virtual and at home where we're trying to sort of be present, but I appreciate that you sent those along and we can reference them too. The motion before us is that the Toronto Preservation Board requests that City Council direct the Senior Manager, Heritage Planning, Urban Design, City Planning to pursue the examination of the interior of the properties located at 29, 31, and 33 Sussex Avenue to identify potential heritage attributes relating to the design values. Is there any discussion on this amendment? Yes, Adam.
Madam Chair, I can put an interior photo up in 5 seconds. It will not delay the discussion.
No, thank you.
Okay.
I think what you have, though, is very clear wording, and you have spoken in a very impassioned way. We trust you, Adam. This is your bread and butter. You're such a good historian of the area, so I think there's a reason why you're putting this forward. So as a discussion of this amendment, yeah, Paul.
Sorry to be tiresome about it, but just to nitpick the wording, it didn't read to me to say, go ahead and designate, but look for additional things. And so to my mind, the word additional or, hinting at amending it when information is available. I just hate to see this held up as a designation while that went on. Maybe I'm not reading it right, but.
I can clarify because we did give that some consideration because this report is going to Planning and Housing and then on to City Council. And so there are a few options that we have that we can consider, but I wouldn't want to pull it from an agenda in order to do that. And Planning and Housing has to adopt the motion of the board in order for it to be, for us to know that that's the direction, which doesn't mean to say we wouldn't take consideration of it anyway. It's just in terms of a formal motion. So there are a few ways we can do it. Our intention would not be to hold it up. However, if we get access and we do think that it has value and we do have that conversation with U of T, because interiors are, it's an extraordinary measure to regulate the interior of anybody's home. So we take that very seriously. But if we thought that we could do that prior to council, then we would do that. But just leave that. We wanted to keep it intentionally a little vague, so you noticed something that was intentional.
Cool. If you're happy, I'm happy.
Other discussion points?
To clarify some of the potential interior elements, there's a very grand plaster work and what they call the ballroom in Gemini House. And there's a very grand sweeping curved staircase in the tower, and there's probably other elements that have not been featured, but those have been featured in the Globe and Mail and in ERA Architects websites. So I imagine if you get access to the other three, or all three of them, there may be other elements as well. So thank you.
Other points of discussion? Seeing none, we need to vote on the amendment. So Adam has moved it. All those in favor of the amendment? The motion carries. We now have a staff report before us. Are there questions of the report of the issue as amended? Is there discussion amongst ourselves? Adam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff mentioned earlier that they received information that's under review. I can provide a very brief summary of that and note that it's still under review. It's some very important contextual and associative history.
I think at this point, my concern, Adam, is this a question for staff that you're trying to do, or you?
No, I was just going to offer a brief 30-second summary of the recent information that came to light.
For Sussex?
For Sussex? But this was addressed during the staff presentation, that it's ongoing. I thought that was, at least for me, that was relatively clear. I know that there were a lot of things happening behind the scenes as you were anticipating the motion, so I thought this was good. But Mary's going to speak to it briefly.
I'll just say one more thing, Adam, which is we have the information, just to be clear.
Yep.
We will, it is yet to go on the planning and housing agenda, like live. So if we think that things can be changed and we think it's necessary enough to change it, we will do that in like the 2 days we have to do it before planning and housing. We also have the opportunity to make changes before council. But again, if it's something that's in the staff report, that's unlikely to change. If it affects the values and attributes, then we would want to make sure that happened prior to council.
Other questions as we go back and forth? Discussion amongst ourselves? Adam?
Last comment, I promise, and then we can vote unless anyone else has one. This Huron-Sussex area of special identity is really a true gem in the city of Toronto. It has such rich cultural, literary, and arts history that I really encourage a broader study of the entire district. Margaret Atwood published her first book across the street. Gordon Lightfoot lived across the street in the 60s. House of Anansi Press was established on this Brock. It's really quite a phenomenal area of the city of Toronto, and I'm very grateful to see these designated.
Thank you very much. I think if there's any takeaway from all of the agenda items is that we have a very vibrant city full of amazing pockets, all worthy of exploration and study. We have a staff report before us with recommendations. Seeing that there's no other discussion, would anybody like to move the recommendations as amended in the report? Adam, thank you very much. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody. We are back here on January the 31st, hopefully to see everybody in person again. It was lovely to see everybody here today. Thank you so much to staff and to clerks as we navigate this. And to the rest of my members, have a lovely rest of your day. Meeting's adjourned.